Hello, friends. Good evening and welcome back. Tonight, we travel far into the past, to the villages and fields of ancient China. As always, find a comfortable position, relax your shoulders, and allow the story to unfold slowly. There are no dramatic battles here, no heroic adventures, and no urgent events. Instead, we will explore the ordinary lives of ordinary people. Imagine that it is a quiet morning nearly 2,000 years ago. The village is still dark. Most people do not wake to the sound of clocks. There are no alarms, no phones, and no electric lights glowing through the night. Instead, life follows the rhythm of nature. A farmer slowly opens his eyes before sunrise. The room is small and simple. The walls are made from packed earth. The floor is hard. A few wooden tools rest in one corner. A clay jar stands against the wall. Several family members sleep nearby because homes are often crowded. The air is cool. Outside, the world remains silent, except for distant insects and the occasional bark of a dog. The farmer rises carefully. He cannot stay in bed very long. The fields are waiting, and the fields never take a day off. In ancient China, farming is the center of life. Nearly everything depends on successful harvests. If crops grow well, families eat. If crops fail, hardship follows.
The farmer puts on simple clothing made from rough cloth. Wealthy nobles may wear fine silk, but most villagers never experience such luxury. Their clothes are practical rather than comfortable. He steps outside. The sky is beginning to brighten. Across the village, other families are also waking. Thin streams of smoke rise from cooking fires. Chickens begin moving around their enclosures. Somewhere nearby, an elderly woman sweeps dust from a courtyard. Breakfast is usually simple. Perhaps there is millet porridge. Perhaps there is a small amount of rice if the region produces it. Maybe there are vegetables left over from the previous day. Nobody expects a large feast. Food is fuel for the long hours ahead. After eating, the farmer gathers his tools. Many ancient farming tools are made from wood. Iron exists, but it is valuable and not always available to everyone. Every tool represents time, effort, and expense. The walk to the fields may take only a few minutes, yet those fields represent years of labor. The land must be cleared, planted, watered, protected, and harvested. Every season brings different challenges. Too much rain can destroy crops. Too little rain can do the same. As the sun slowly rises, the farmer begins his work. The soil is heavy. The labor is repetitive. Hour after hour, day after day, he bends, lifts, carries, and digs. There is little entertainment. There are no podcasts, radios, or music players. Instead, workers listen to birds, wind, insects, and the sounds of other people laboring nearby. Children often help as well. Many families need every available hand. Young boys and girls learn farming skills early because survival depends upon cooperation. Education exists, but for many rural families, work comes first. A child may spend the morning carrying water, gathering firewood, or helping care for animals. Life is not necessarily miserable, but it is demanding. Most villagers understand that every meal on the table comes from physical effort. The weather controls much of their existence. A cloudy sky can inspire hope. A dry season can inspire worry. When rain finally arrives after weeks of waiting, entire communities may feel relief. Yet even rain can become dangerous. Floods are a constant threat in some regions. China's great rivers provide fertile land, but they can also bring destruction. A single flood may erase months of labor. The farmer knows this. Every seed planted carries uncertainty. Still, work continues. The morning grows warmer. Sweat appears on foreheads. The village gradually becomes busy with activity. Merchants prepare goods. Craftsmen begin projects. Women perform countless household tasks. Elderly relatives care for young children. Everyone contributes in some way. This is the reality of ordinary life in ancient China. Not grand palaces, not famous emperors, not legendary generals. Just people, waking before dawn and working until sunset. For them, history is not made in royal courts. History is made in fields. History is made through routine. History is made through countless ordinary mornings that seem unimportant at the time. As the sun climbs higher into the sky, the farmer continues working. The day has only just begun, And tomorrow, he will wake before sunrise and do it all again. Because in ancient China, survival often depends on consistency rather than excitement. And consistency, while essential, can be wonderfully boring.
The morning has now settled into its steady rhythm. The cool air that greeted the villagers before sunrise has quietly disappeared. In its place comes a gentle warmth that will soon become the heavy heat of the afternoon. For many families in southern ancient China, the day's work leads not to dry fields, but to water. Stretching across the countryside are countless rice paddies, their shallow pools reflecting the pale blue sky like hundreds of tiny mirrors. From a distance, they appear peaceful. Up close, they are exhausting. A farmer steps carefully onto the narrow earthen path separating one flooded field from another. His feet are already damp from the morning dew, and before long they sink ankle-deep into thick, sticky mud. Each step requires effort. The mud clings stubbornly to his legs, refusing to let go. Lifting one foot means pulling against the weight of the earth itself. It is slow work. There is no quick way to plant rice. Every seedling must be planted by hand. Rows must remain neat. Spacing matters. A careless mistake today may reduce the harvest months from now. The farmer bends forward. He reaches into a bundle of young green rice plants resting beside him. One by one, he presses each delicate shoot into the soft soil beneath the water. Then another, and another, and another. The movement soon becomes almost automatic. Reach, plant, step, repeat. Hour after hour, the rhythm rarely changes. Unlike wheat or millet, rice asks for constant attention. The fields must remain flooded, but not too deeply. Water must arrive at the right time and leave at the right time. Small channels guide streams from nearby rivers into the paddies. Simple wooden gates help control the flow. Without careful management, an entire season's work can disappear. Too much water drowns the plants. Too little leaves them dry and weak. The farmer cannot simply hope for the best. He watches the fields every day. In many villages, neighbors cooperate to maintain canals and irrigation systems. One blocked channel affects everyone downstream. When repairs are needed, families often work together. No one receives payment. The reward is simply the chance for everyone to harvest enough food. As the sun climbs higher, the water begins reflecting bright light directly into the workers' faces. There is little shade. Wide straw hats help protect against the sun, but they cannot remove the heat. Sweat rolls down tired faces. Tiny insects hover above the standing water. Dragonflies dart gracefully through the air, catching mosquitoes before they become too troublesome. Still, not every insect can be avoided. Mosquitoes find exposed skin. Small flies gather around damp clothing. Occasionally, a leech quietly attaches itself beneath the muddy water, unnoticed until someone feels a slight sting. No one enjoys discovering one, yet such inconveniences are accepted as part of daily life. The work continues. Nearby, several children carry woven baskets filled with fresh seedlings. They are too young to perform the hardest labor, but they can help in smaller ways. They laugh occasionally. Sometimes they splash one another with muddy water until an older relative reminds them that work comes first. Their laughter fades. The planting resumes. Even children understand that rice is more than food. It is security. A successful harvest means meals through the coming months. A failed harvest brings uncertainty. Some families own small pieces of land. Others farm land belonging to wealthy landlords or government officials.
In those cases, part of every harvest must be given away as rent or tax. The farmer may spend months growing rice, only to keep a portion of what he has produced. Even so, refusing to farm is not an option. The family depends upon it. As midday approaches, workers pause only briefly. Lunch is modest. Perhaps cold rice left from the previous evening, maybe pickled vegetables, sometimes beans. On fortunate days, there may be a small piece of fish caught from a nearby stream. Meat is uncommon for ordinary farming families. It is something enjoyed on special occasions rather than every week. The meal is eaten quietly. There is little conversation. Everyone knows there is still much work waiting. After a short rest beneath the limited shade of a tree, they return to the paddies. The afternoon often feels longer than the morning. Bodies become heavier. Legs grow sore from standing in water. Backs ache from endless bending. Hands wrinkle after hours beneath the shallow flood. Yet the neat rows of young rice slowly spread across the fields. Progress is measured not in excitement, but in patience. Weeks later, the tiny green shoots will begin to grow taller. Months later, they will turn golden. But that future remains uncertain. Dark clouds may appear. Strong winds could flatten the crop. Floods might wash everything away, or drought could arrive before harvest. Every season carries risk. Still, the villagers return each morning, not because the work becomes easier, but because it must be done. Long before emperors issued grand decrees or scholars wrote elegant poems, ordinary people were standing in these muddy fields, quietly feeding an empire. Their names would never appear in official histories. No monuments would honor their labor. No artist would paint their portraits. Yet without them, cities would have no grain. Markets would stand empty. Armies would march hungry. The empire itself rested upon countless hands planting one small rice seedling after another. As the afternoon sun slowly begins its descent, the farmer straightens his back for a moment. He looks across the flooded fields. Thousands of tiny green plants now sway gently in the breeze. Tomorrow, there will be thousands more. And the mud will still be waiting.
By the time the rice fields are left behind, another task is already waiting. The work of an ancient Chinese village never truly ends. There is always another chore, another repair, another journey that cannot be postponed until tomorrow. One of the most important of these daily routines is fetching water. To people today, clean water often arrives with the turn of a handle. It flows through pipes hidden beneath streets and walls, appearing almost effortlessly. For the people of ancient China, however, every single drop had to be collected. There were no water towers, no pumps, no indoor plumbing. If a family wanted water for drinking, cooking, washing, or feeding animals, someone had to go and bring it home. Usually, this responsibility fell to women, older children, or elderly family members who were no longer able to perform heavy field work. The journey often began with 2 empty wooden buckets. They hung from either end of a smooth bamboo pole. The pole rested across the shoulders, balancing the weight as evenly as possible. Even empty, the buckets were awkward. Filled with water, they became surprisingly heavy. A young woman steps outside her family's courtyard. The morning sun is already climbing higher into the sky. She adjusts the bamboo pole across her shoulders and begins walking towards the village well. Her pace is steady. She has made this journey hundreds of times before, perhaps thousands. She no longer thinks about each step. The path is familiar. She knows where the ground becomes uneven.
She knows which stones become slippery after rain. She knows which dogs are likely to bark as she passes. Around her, other villagers are doing exactly the same thing. Some carry clay jars, others carry woven baskets. A few balance large ceramic containers on their backs, using rope straps across their foreheads. Everyone moves carefully. Dropping a full container would waste precious water and perhaps break an expensive vessel. For poorer families, replacing a cracked clay jar might take months. Eventually, the woman reaches the village well. If the village has no well, she may continue to a nearby stream, river, or spring. The quality of the water depends entirely on the location. Some sources are clear and fresh, others become muddy after heavy rain. In dry seasons, water levels may fall dangerously low. Villagers sometimes wait patiently for their turn. There is no rushing. Everyone depends on the same source. A long wooden pole lowers a bucket into the darkness below. The rope creaks softly. A splash echoes from deep inside the well. Slowly, the bucket rises again, dripping cold water. The woman pours it carefully into her own containers, then another, and another. Each bucket grows heavier. Soon the bamboo pole bends slightly under the weight. Now comes the difficult part, walking home. The water sloshes gently with every movement. Too fast, and some spills onto the dusty road. Too slowly, and valuable time disappears. She walks with practiced balance, making tiny adjustments with each step.
Her shoulders have grown strong from years of carrying this burden. Children often begin helping with smaller containers long before they become adults. What starts as a light clay pot eventually becomes 2 full buckets. The skill develops gradually. Balance becomes second nature. Even so, accidents happen. Sometimes a child stumbles. Sometimes a rope snaps. Sometimes an old bucket simply breaks apart after years of use. Then the entire trip must begin again. Back at home, the water is divided carefully.
Some is stored for drinking. Some will be used for cooking the evening meal. A little is reserved for washing vegetables. Another portion is kept for cleaning bowls and chopsticks. Very little can be wasted. Bathing is not a daily luxury for most farming families. Water is simply too valuable. People wash their faces and hands regularly, especially before meals or religious ceremonies. But full body washing happens less often than many people today might expect. Clothing is also washed carefully. Soap, as we know it today, does not exist. Instead, people may use ash, natural plant materials, or simply water combined with vigorous scrubbing. Every chore requires effort. Every bucket represents another walk to the well. During periods of drought, the situation becomes even harder. The line at the well grows longer. Arguments sometimes break out over whose turn comes next. Village leaders may organize schedules to prevent conflict. Families begin rationing every container. Even animals receive less. The sound of rain becomes welcome music. When the first drops finally fall after weeks of dry weather, many villagers pause their work and quietly watch the sky. Rain means relief, at least for a while.
Yet too much rain brings different worries. Heavy storms can muddy wells and contaminate streams. Floodwaters may carry dirt, waste, and dead animals into the very places where drinking water is collected. The villagers have no knowledge of bacteria or microscopic disease. They only know that sometimes people become ill after floods. The reason remains a mystery. Still, life continues. Tomorrow morning, someone will once again lift the bamboo pole onto tired shoulders. Someone will walk the familiar path. Someone will lower another bucket into the darkness. The routine never changes. History often remembers the emperors who ordered canals to be built and the engineers who designed impressive irrigation systems. But it rarely remembers the ordinary people who carried water every single day. Without them, meals would not be cooked. Children would go thirsty. Fields could not be tended. Simple acts of survival depended on countless quiet journeys between home and water. As the afternoon breeze stirs the leaves above the village well, another family arrives with empty buckets. Their day's work is only halfway finished, and tomorrow they will return once more, following the same worn path that generations before them had already walked, one careful step at a time. As the sun begins its slow journey toward the western hills, the pace of work gradually softens. The fields are not finished. They are never truly finished. But there comes a point when the fading daylight makes it difficult to continue, and families begin making their way home. For most villagers in ancient China, home is not a grand building with carved stone walls or colorful painted roofs. Those impressive houses belong to wealthy officials, merchants, or members of the imperial court. Ordinary people live very differently. A typical farming family shares a modest house built from the materials found nearby: earth, wood, bamboo, clay, straw. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is unnecessary. A man carrying a wooden hoe walks slowly through the village path. His clothes are stained with mud from the fields. His hands are rough. His shoulders ache after another long day beneath the sun. Ahead, smoke curls gently upward from several homes where evening meals are already being prepared. The smell of burning firewood drifts through the cool evening air. Children chase one another between narrow paths before their parents call them inside. A few chickens scratch at the dusty ground, searching for insects before darkness arrives. The farmer reaches his home. It is small, much smaller than many modern homes. The walls are made from packed earth mixed with straw. Builders press damp soil firmly between wooden frames until it hardens into thick walls. These walls are inexpensive to build and surprisingly good at keeping out both summer heat and winter cold. But they require regular maintenance. Heavy rain slowly wears them away. Cracks appear. Small repairs become part of everyday life. Every few months, another layer of mud must be added. The roof is covered with bundles of straw or reeds tied carefully together. In wealthier villages, some families use clay roof tiles. Most cannot afford them. A thatched roof works well enough, though it demands attention. Strong winds can pull sections loose. Heavy storms sometimes create leaks. Every rainy season brings another chance for repairs.
The doorway is low. Visitors naturally lower their heads before entering. Inside, the room is dim. There are no glass windows. Small openings in the walls allow light and fresh air to enter during the day. Wooden shutters can be closed when the weather turns cold or stormy. As evening approaches, sunlight fades quickly. Without electricity, darkness arrives with surprising speed. The family's belongings are few: a wooden table, several stools, clay bowls, simple chopsticks, woven baskets filled with grain, a storage jar containing dried vegetables, a few blankets folded neatly in one corner. Everything has a purpose. There is very little decoration, not because people dislike beauty, but because survival leaves little room for unnecessary possessions. Sleeping arrangements are simple. Most families do not have separate bedrooms. Instead, parents, grandparents, and children often sleep together in the same large room. At night, woven mats are spread across the floor. Blankets are shared during cold weather. Privacy, as many people understand it today, is almost unknown. Life happens together. Meals, work, rest, conversations, even sleep. The house is not only a place to live, it is also a workshop. One family member repairs baskets, another mends torn clothing, someone sharpens farming tools. Grandparents twist rope from dried plant fibers while telling quiet stories to curious children. The home remains busy long after the fields have been left behind. Near the center of the room sits the cooking fire. Smoke rises slowly towards a small opening in the roof. Not all of it escapes. Some lingers inside, filling the room with the familiar scent of wood smoke. Over many years, dark soot covers the ceiling beams. The smoke also helps keep insects away and preserves some stored foods. The family has become accustomed to it. Visitors from another time might find the air uncomfortable. For them, it simply smells like home. Outside, small animals are kept close to the house, perhaps a pig.
Many have been repaired more than once. A crack does not always mean the end of a useful pot. Sometimes it is patched with clay and used for many more years. Nothing is thrown away unless it can no longer be repaired. Tonight's meal depends entirely on what the family has available. Perhaps there is rice harvested months earlier and carefully stored in large clay jars. In northern regions, there may be millet instead of rice. Some families prepare simple wheat noodles by hand. Others cook thick grain porridge that fills empty stomachs even if it lacks variety. The woman pours water into the pot. Soon it begins to warm. She adds handfuls of grain without measuring them. She has prepared this meal so many times that her hands know the proper amount. There is no written recipe, only memory, only habit. Vegetables are added next: cabbage, turnips, radishes, leafy greens, perhaps onions or garlic if they are available. Everything comes from the family's own garden or nearby fields. Nothing is wasted. Wilted leaves become soup. Vegetable peels may feed animals. Even ashes from yesterday's fire can serve useful purposes around the home. Meat appears only occasionally. For many farming families, eating meat every day would be impossible. A chicken lays eggs that are often more valuable than the bird itself. A pig may be raised for months before finally being eaten during an important festival. Fish from nearby rivers sometimes provide welcome variety. But on most ordinary evenings, the meal remains mostly grains and vegetables. Surprisingly, it is enough. The goal is not luxury. The goal is nourishment. As the pot gently bubbles, the room fills with comforting aromas. Steam rises toward the dark wooden beams overhead. Children begin gathering around the low table, watching eagerly. They know dinner is almost ready. One young boy reaches toward the pot. His grandmother gently reminds him to wait. Hot food requires patience. The family owns only a few bowls, perhaps one for each person, perhaps fewer. If guests arrive unexpectedly, everyone simply adjusts. Sharing food has always been easier than finding extra dishes. Wooden or bamboo chopsticks are carefully reused every day. A broken pair is repaired whenever possible.
Even simple eating utensils represent valuable work. Nothing is inexpensive when everything must be made by hand. The meal begins only after the oldest members of the family are seated. Respect for elders shapes daily life. Grandparents are honored not because of wealth, but because of age, experience, and wisdom. Children learn this from an early age. No one eats before the elders begin. Conversation remains gentle. The family speaks about tomorrow's work. They discuss weather. Rain is expected. Or perhaps everyone hopes it will arrive. Someone mentions a neighbor repairing his roof. Another talks about a merchant who visited the nearby market. Nothing dramatic, just ordinary life. Sometimes silence fills the room instead. After spending the entire day working, many people simply enjoy the chance to sit. The fire crackles softly. Bowls empty slowly. No one rushes. Eating is one of the few moments when the entire household rests together. Once dinner has finished, another task immediately begins. Cleaning. There is no running water beside the hearth. The bowls are washed carefully, using water carried earlier from the well. Very little is used. Soap, in the modern sense, does not exist. Ash, sand, or coarse plant fibers help scrub away food.
The cooking pot is cleaned while still warm. If food dries onto the surface overnight, tomorrow's work becomes much harder. Leftovers, if any remain, are stored carefully. Sometimes they are covered with cloth. Sometimes placed inside clay containers to keep insects away. Refrigeration does not exist. Food must be eaten quickly or preserved through drying, salting, pickling, or fermentation. Experience teaches families how long different foods will remain safe. Mistakes can be costly. As the fire slowly burns lower, only glowing embers remain. The warmth lingers inside the small house. Outside, darkness has fully settled across the village. The stars shine brightly above the rooftops. Without city lights, the night sky appears astonishingly clear. Children often step outside for a moment before bedtime. They look upward, though they may know only a handful of the constellations. The moon quietly watches over the sleeping countryside. Inside, tomorrow's grain has already been measured. Firewood has been stacked beside the hearth. The cooking pot rests upside down to dry. Everything is prepared for another day that will begin before sunrise. History remembers magnificent imperial banquets served inside glittering palaces. It records exotic ingredients carried across distant trade routes. Yet those grand feasts were enjoyed by very few. The vast majority of ancient Chinese people shared simple evening meals like this one. A bowl of rice, a pot of vegetables, perhaps a little soup. Prepared without recipes, without clocks, without hurry. Only with patience, practice, and generations of quiet knowledge passed from one family to the next. As the final ember fades into darkness, the household settles onto woven sleeping mats. The village grows silent once more. Tomorrow's dinner will probably look much the same, and no one finds that surprising.
Heavy furniture leaves dents. Rodents sometimes dig tiny tunnels beneath the surface. Every season brings another repair. Inside the house, another family member wipes wooden tables with a damp cloth. The cloth itself has been used countless times. Nothing is disposable. After cleaning, it is washed, dried in the sun, and used again. Water is far too valuable to waste. Every drop used for cleaning was carried home from the village well. Because of this, families learn to clean efficiently. A little water, a lot of effort. The cooking area receives special attention. Ash from yesterday's fire is carefully collected. Some of it is saved. Wood ash has many uses. It helps clean cooking pots. It can reduce unpleasant smells. In some cases, it even becomes part of homemade cleaning mixtures. Very little ends up being thrown away. Outside, woven baskets are turned upside down and shaken free of dust. Sleeping mats are carried into the sunlight. The fresh air helps remove moisture and discourages insects from making their homes among the woven reeds. Blankets are hung over wooden poles. The morning breeze gently moves them back and forth. There is something peaceful about these quiet routines.
No one rushes. There is no schedule posted on a wall. People simply know what needs to be done. Generations have followed the same rhythm. The family storage jars must also be inspected. Large clay containers hold precious supplies of grain, rice, millet, beans. If moisture enters the jars, mold may begin to grow. If insects find their way inside, months of food could be lost. Every lid is checked carefully. Every container is examined. The family's future depends upon these simple precautions. Even clothing requires regular attention. Most garments are handmade. Every thread represents many hours of spinning, weaving, and sewing. A torn sleeve is not replaced. It is repaired. A loose stitch is tightened before it becomes a larger hole. Grandmothers often spend quiet afternoons mending clothes, while younger family members continue working outside. Patches become common. One piece of cloth may spend decades serving different purposes. First as clothing, then as a smaller garment for a child, later as cleaning rags, finally as kindling for the cooking fire. Almost nothing reaches the end of its usefulness quickly. Insects remain constant visitors. Ants search for food. Ants search for food. Spiders quietly build webs in forgotten corners. Flies gather wherever scraps remain. Mosquitoes arrive during warmer months. Families do not expect to eliminate these tiny guests completely. Instead, they simply manage them as best as they can. Smoke from cooking fires helps. Keeping food helps. Cats sometimes help even more. A village cat spends much of its day hunting mice around grain storage areas. Few people think of the animal as a pet in the modern sense. It is a hard-working member of the household. Its reward is food and shelter. By midday, the house looks tidy once again.
The floor has been swept, the table cleaned, the bedding aired, the cooking pots stacked neatly beside the hearth. It is satisfying work. Yet everyone knows the result will not last. This afternoon, the children will return from outside. The farmer will bring fresh mud home on his sandals. Wind will carry another layer of dust through the doorway. Tomorrow morning, the broom will come out once more. History often celebrates magnificent palaces, polished until every floor reflected the emperor's image. Servants spent endless hours maintaining those grand halls. But ordinary villagers faced the same challenge with far fewer tools and much smaller homes. Their victories were modest: a clean table, a swept floor, fresh bedding, enough order to make another busy day a little more comfortable. There were no awards for these quiet achievements, no official records, no monuments, only the quiet satisfaction of caring for a home built with one's own hands. As the sun climbs higher into the clear sky, the broom is returned to its familiar place beside the doorway. The morning cleaning is complete. For today, tomorrow, the dust will return, and so will the broom.
The family closes the wooden door behind them. There is no horse waiting outside, no carriage, no bicycle, certainly no automobile. The road ahead is nothing more than a narrow dirt path stretching between fields, gardens, and clusters of small homes. Like most ordinary people in ancient China, they will reach their destination the same way they always do. They will walk. For modern people, walking is often a choice: a short stroll after dinner, a weekend hike, perhaps a few minutes between a parking lot and a building. For an ancient farmer, walking is simply life. Almost every journey begins with the first step and ends with the last. The farmer adjusts the bamboo basket resting against his back. Its woven straps press gently against his shoulders. Inside are a few simple tools: a wooden hoe, a rope, a small cloth wrapped around his midday meal. Nothing more. Every extra item means extra weight. Every unnecessary object makes the journey a little harder. The morning air is cool enough to make the walk pleasant. Birds call from nearby trees. A faint mist still lingers over the distant rice fields. The village slowly comes alive as more families emerge from their homes. Some walk alone. Others travel in small groups, chatting quietly as they make their way toward the fields. Children hurry alongside their parents with shorter, quicker steps, occasionally stopping to examine an interesting stone or chase a brightly colored butterfly. They are gently reminded to keep moving. There is work to be done. The road itself is uneven. Years of footsteps have carved shallow grooves into the packed earth. During dry weather, the surface becomes hard and dusty. Each passing cart sends another cloud of fine dirt drifting through the air. After heavy rain, the same road transforms into thick mud. Walking becomes slow and exhausting. Sandals sink into the soft ground. Sometimes they remain stuck behind, forcing the traveller to stop and pull them free. No one complains very much. There is little point. The road will dry eventually. Until then, everyone simply walks more carefully. Bridges are uncommon in smaller villages. Where streams cross the path, people often step across flat stones or narrow wooden planks placed over the water. During floods, these crossings sometimes disappear entirely. Travel must wait until the water recedes. Patience becomes another part of daily life. Most villagers rarely travel far from home. Their entire world may exist within a distance that can be walked in a single day. The fields, the nearby market, the village well. A neighboring settlement, perhaps a local temple during important festivals. Beyond that lies unfamiliar territory, not because they fear distant places, but because they have little reason to visit them. Work keeps them close to home. A trip to the nearest market can still require several hours of walking. Families often leave before sunrise, carrying baskets filled with vegetables, eggs, woven baskets, or handmade cloth. By the time they arrive, the market is already busy. After trading their goods and purchasing a few necessities, they begin the long journey home before darkness falls. Walking with an empty basket feels easy. Walking home with bags of salt, grain, or tools is another matter entirely. The return journey always seems longer. Some fortunate merchants own ox carts. The sturdy animals pull heavy wooden wagons loaded with goods. The pace is slow, very slow. An ox rarely hurries, yet it can carry far more weight than any person. Farmers watch the carts pass with quiet appreciation. Few envy the merchants. Caring for an ox requires food, shelter, and constant attention. For many families, simply owning one would be impossible. The roads themselves are not smooth. Tree roots push through the surface. Small rocks wait to catch an unwary foot. Wheel ruts deepen after every rainy season. Travel demands attention. Looking down becomes almost as important as looking ahead. Even experienced walkers occasionally stumble. Children quickly learn where the safest paths lie. Grandparents know every shortcut. Every bend in the road carries familiar memories. There is the old willow tree struck by lightning years ago. The stone where travelers often pause to rest. The small stream where children catch tiny fish during warm summer afternoons. These landmarks guide people far more effectively than maps. Most villagers cannot read written directions. They do not need them. The landscape itself tells the story. Sometimes travelers meet strangers, a wandering merchant, a Buddhist monk, a government messenger carrying official documents, perhaps a traveling doctor visiting several villages. News spreads slowly in the ancient world. A single traveler may carry stories from places hundreds of miles away. Villagers gather eagerly to listen. They hear about distant floods, successful harvests, changes in taxes, rumors of wars that seem unimaginably far away. For a few moments, the wider world feels close. Then the traveler continues onward, disappearing down the dusty road. Silence returns. Walking also provides time for quiet thought. The steady rhythm of footsteps encourages reflection. Farmers think about tomorrow's weather. Mothers plan the evening meal. Children imagine games they will play after work is finished. Grandparents remember roads that looked exactly the same when they were young. Generations have walked these paths before. Generations will walk them after. History often celebrates the magnificent roads built for emperors and the great canals that connected distant provinces.
Not every morning in ancient China begins with a trip to the fields. Every so often, perhaps once every 5 days in some regions, the village follows a different rhythm. Today is market day. For many farming families, it is one of the few chances to leave the familiar boundaries of their village and meet people from other communities. It is not a holiday. There is still work to be done, but the work is different. The farmer wakes before sunrise, just as he always does. His routine changes only slightly. Instead of carrying a hoe over his shoulder, he prepares several woven baskets. His wife carefully arranges vegetables harvested the previous afternoon. Fresh cabbages, bundles of green onions, a few turnips, perhaps a basket of beans or several carefully wrapped eggs collected over the past week. Each item is placed neatly inside the baskets. Presentation matters. Customers are more likely to buy food that appears clean and fresh. A daughter ties the basket securely with rope made from twisted plant fibers. Nothing can be allowed to fall during the long walk. The family's entire morning may depend on what they manage to sell. By the time the eastern sky begins to glow, dozens of villagers are already walking toward the marketplace. Some carry grain, others bring woven mats. One elderly craftsman balances wooden stools across a bamboo pole resting on his shoulders. A potter carefully protects several newly fired clay bowls wrapped in straw. Even children help, carrying smaller bundles suitable for their age. The road feels livelier than usual. People greet neighbors from nearby villages. News is exchanged long before anyone reaches the market. Someone mentions that heavy rain damaged a bridge 2 villages away. Another says this year's wheat appears healthier than last year's crop. A merchant claims to have seen silk from distant workshops. Whether every story is true hardly matters. The conversation makes the journey seem shorter. After several hours of walking, the market finally comes into view. Unlike the quiet village, the marketplace is alive with movement. Voices rise from every direction. Wooden carts creak beneath heavy loads. Oxen stand patiently beside their owners. Children weave between rows of stalls, trying not to bump into anyone carrying fragile goods. The air smells wonderfully different. Fresh vegetables, steamed buns, cooking soup.
Wood smoke, herbs, leather, wet earth. All the ordinary scents of daily life mixed together into something strangely comforting. The farmer finds an empty space along a row of cellars. There are no permanent shops for most merchants. A woven mat spread across the ground becomes today's store. The baskets are arranged carefully. The largest vegetables are placed at the front. Smaller items fill the spaces behind them. Everything must look inviting. Soon, the first customers arrive. An elderly woman examines several cabbages with great care. She gently squeezes the leaves, searching for freshness. A young father asks about the price of onions. A grandmother compares one basket of beans to another before making her choice. Very few people pay exactly the first price they hear. Bargaining is expected. Not angry bargaining, not shouting, simply a polite conversation. The customer suggests one price,
The seller smiles and suggests another. After a little discussion, both sides usually reach an agreement. If not, the customer simply walks to the next store. There is rarely any hard feeling. Everyone understands the game. Coins are used when available, but many exchanges happen through barter. A basket of vegetables may be traded for cooking oil. Eggs become cloth. Grain becomes salt. A handmade broom becomes dried fish. Money is useful. Goods are often even more useful. The marketplace offers more than food. A blacksmith sits beneath a simple wooden shelter, tapping rhythmically on glowing iron. Each strike of his hammer echoes through the crowded square. Nearby, a basket maker patiently weaves fresh bamboo strips into sturdy containers. His fingers move almost automatically after years of practice. A woman sells homemade sandals woven from straw. Another offers bundles of medicinal herbs gathered from nearby hills. People stop to smell unfamiliar leaves and ask questions about their uses. Not every remedy works, but hope itself is often worth something. Traveling merchants occasionally bring unusual treasures. A brightly colored piece of silk, a polished bronze mirror, fine tea from another province, small ornaments carved from jade. Most ordinary farmers pause only to admire these objects.
They are beautiful, but they cost far more than a week's earnings. Looking is free. Buying is another matter entirely. Children find the market endlessly fascinating. Everything seems exciting. A storyteller gathers a small crowd beneath the shade of a large tree. His voice rises and falls dramatically as he tells an old tale about clever scholars, wandering spirits, or legendary heroes. The children listen with wide eyes. Even tired adults slow their pace for a few moments. Stories cost little, sometimes only a smile, perhaps a single coin if one can be spared. As midday approaches, the market reaches its busiest moment. Voices overlap in every direction. The sound never becomes chaotic. Instead, it settles into a steady hum, like thousands of bees working together. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone has somewhere to be. The farmer counts the few coins he has earned. Not many, but enough. He purchases a small bag of salt. Salt is precious. Without it, preserving food through the winter becomes much more difficult. He also buys a replacement needle. The old one finally broke after many years of repairing clothes. Such a tiny object, such an important purchase. By early afternoon, the market slowly begins to empty. Unsold goods are packed once again into woven baskets. Merchants secure ropes around their loads. Oxen begin pulling heavy carts towards distant villages. The long walk home begins. The baskets feel lighter now, not because the journey is easier, but because much of today's produce has found new homes. The farmer returns carrying salt, a needle, and perhaps a small piece of dried fish as a rare treat for the family. It is not an exciting day by modern standards. No great fortunes were made, no famous people appeared, no extraordinary events occurred. Yet for ordinary villagers, market day is a welcome change. It brings fresh conversations, new faces, interesting smells, different sights. A reminder that beyond the familiar fields, countless other people are living lives much like their own. As the sun begins its slow descent towards the western hills, the farmer finally reaches his village once again. Tomorrow, the market will be gone. The square will stand quiet until the next gathering, and life will return to its usual rhythm. The fields will still be waiting, as they always are.
The excitement of market day fades quickly. By the next morning, the familiar rhythm of village life has returned. The fields are quiet once again, except for the steady sounds of tools striking the earth, and the distant calls of birds greeting another sunrise. For every farming family in ancient China, there is one reality that never stays far from their thoughts. No matter how hard they work, not every basket of grain belongs to them. A farmer may spend months preparing the soil. He plants every seed by hand. He waters the fields. He pulls weeds beneath the hot summer sun. He worries through storms, droughts, and hungry insects. When harvest finally arrives, the grain filling his baskets is the result of countless hours of labor. Yet before his family can fully enjoy the reward, a portion must be given away. These are taxes. Modern people often think of taxes as numbers appearing on documents or money disappearing from bank accounts. In ancient China, taxes are far more visible. They can be measured in sacks of rice, bundles of wheat, jars of grain, lengths of cloth, or days of labor. The emperor's government depends upon these contributions. Roads must be maintained, canals repaired, Soldiers supplied. Officials paid. Without taxes, the empire cannot function. Most villagers understand this, even if they do not always welcome it. As harvest season approaches, quiet conversations begin throughout the village. Do you think this year's crop will be enough? Has the tax collector already visited the next village? I heard the northern fields suffered from flooding. Such discussions are common. Everyone hopes for a generous harvest. Not simply because they want more food, because they know some of it is already spoken for. The farmer walks into his storage building. Large clay jars line one wall. Woven baskets filled with freshly harvested grain stand neatly stacked. For a brief moment, the room feels comforting. Months of hard work now rest safely indoors. But he knows these baskets will soon become fewer. The tax collector will arrive. The collector is not usually a cruel man. He is simply another worker doing his assigned duty. He carries official records. Perhaps a bamboo scroll. Perhaps wooden tally sticks used to keep careful accounts. His responsibility is clear. Record what each household owes. Collect it. Move on to the next village. Sometimes he travels with assistants. Occasionally, local soldiers accompany the group, not because violence is expected, but because government authority is easier to respect when uniforms are nearby. Most collections happen peacefully. Villagers understand they have little choice. The amount owed may depend upon the size of the family's land. Sometimes it depends upon the harvest itself. Different dynasties establish different systems. Some years feel fair. Others feel far more difficult. The greatest challenge comes during poor harvests. Imagine spending months growing rice, only to watch heavy floods destroy half the crop. The remaining harvest barely feeds your family through winter. Yet taxes are still expected. Now the decision becomes painful. Keep more food and risk punishment, or surrender the required amount and hope the remaining grain lasts until spring. There are no easy answers. Some families borrow from relatives. Others sell possessions. A few seek temporary work in nearby towns to earn enough to survive. Most simply endure. The farmer measures grain carefully. One basket, then another. Every scoop reminds him of long days beneath the summer sun. His children helped plant these fields. His wife carried water during dry weeks. His elderly parents watched over the crops while younger family members worked elsewhere. Every member of the household contributed. Now part of that shared effort leaves the home. The children watch quietly. They are too young to understand government finances, but they notice something important. The storage room becomes less full. Their father says little. Complaining changes nothing. He simply continues measuring grain. When the tax collector finishes recording the payment, he offers a respectful nod. The farmer returns the gesture.
Neither man smiles very much. Neither seems angry. It is simply another ordinary transaction in the life of the empire. Not all taxes involve grain. Some households produce cloth instead. Women spend countless hours spinning thread and weaving fabric by hand. A portion of that cloth may satisfy tax obligations. Other families provide labor. They help repair roads, strengthen riverbanks, dig irrigation canals, construct
This system allows those with little grain to contribute through physical work instead. Such labor can last for days or even weeks. During that time, fields back home receive less attention. The burden simply changes shape. Taxes also remind villagers that they belong to something much larger than their own community. Most people will never see the emperor. His palace exists hundreds of miles away. His face appears only in stories, official announcements, or carefully painted portraits that few ordinary farmers ever encounter. Yet his presence reaches every village through taxes. Every basket collected quietly connects the smallest farming household to the vast machinery of the empire. Some years, generous harvests make the payment easier. The family still has enough grain for winter, perhaps even enough to trade at the market. Those years bring quiet relief. Other years are remembered for much longer. Grandparents tell stories of droughts that emptied storage jars, floods that carried entire harvests downstream, locusts that darkened the sky. Years when paying taxes required painful sacrifice. Such memories remain part of family history for generations. Despite these challenges, life continues.
must be planted again. Taxes will return next year, and the year after that. The cycle rarely changes. History often celebrates emperors who lowered taxes during difficult times or increased them to fund great construction projects. Official records carefully preserve these decisions, but they rarely describe the ordinary farmer quietly standing inside a grain store, watching baskets that once belonged to his family slowly disappear onto someone else's cart. No monuments honor that moment, yet it happened millions of times across ancient China, quietly, patiently, almost unnoticed. As the tax collector's wagon rolls slowly out of the village, the farmer closes the door to his storage room. There is still enough grain to feed his family. He is grateful for that. Tomorrow, he will return to the fields once more, because another harvest has already begun.
The grain has been counted. The taxes have been paid. Life, as always, moves quietly forward. In the village, another morning begins with the gentle glow of sunrise spreading across the rooftops. Roosters announce the new day. Thin streams of smoke rise from cooking fires. Wooden doors open one by one as families prepare for another day of work. Among the first to wake are the children. Not because they are eager for lessons in a classroom. For most children in ancient China, there is no classroom waiting. There are no rows of wooden desks, no chalkboards, no school bells ringing to mark the beginning of the day. Education exists, but it is a privilege, not an everyday experience for ordinary farming families. Most children learn their lessons somewhere else. At home, in the fields, beside their parents. A little boy rubs the sleep from his eyes as his mother hands him a small bowl of warm millet porridge. He eats quietly, still waking from the night's sleep. There is no rush, yet everyone understands that the day's work cannot wait.
Soon the boy follows his father outside. He is only 7 years old, far too young to plough a field alone, but old enough to help. His first jobs are simple: carrying a small basket, gathering loose branches for firewood, keeping birds away from newly planted seeds, fetching tools forgotten at the edge of the field. These tasks may seem small, but every helping hand makes life a little easier. His father rarely gives long speeches. Instead, he teaches through example. Watch carefully. Do the work. Repeat it tomorrow. That is how knowledge passes from one generation to the next. A young girl begins her own lessons. She follows her mother into the family garden. There are vegetables to water, beans to harvest, leaves to inspect for hungry insects. As they work together, her mother quietly explains which plants grow well together, which herbs help soothe stomach pain, which vegetables must be picked before the afternoon heat.
No books are needed. The garden itself becomes the classroom. Learning happens through observation. Mistakes become teachers. The girl reaches for a vegetable too early. Her mother smiles gently. "Not yet," she says. "It needs another few days." The lesson is remembered far better than words written on paper. Inside the home, grandparents also play an important role. Age brings experience. Experience brings stories. An elderly grandfather sits beside the doorway repairing a woven basket while his grandchildren gather nearby. As his hands move steadily, he tells them about the great flood that happened when he was a young man. He remembers how neighbors worked together to rebuild broken homes, how the river eventually returned to its banks, how patience carried the village through difficult times. The children listen carefully. These stories are more than entertainment. They are history lessons, moral lessons, survival lessons. Some children are fortunate enough to learn reading and writing. Usually these families have a little more wealth or hope that a son might someday become a scholar. Chinese writing is beautiful. It is also incredibly demanding. Thousands of characters must be memorized. Each one requires careful brushstrokes. Mistakes cannot simply be erased. Paper is valuable. Ink is valuable. Time is valuable.
A young student kneels before a low wooden table. In his hand rests a soft brush dipped in black ink. Slowly, he copies the same character again, and again, and again. His teacher watches patiently. Every stroke matters. The brush must move with confidence. Too much pressure, too little pressure, the character changes. Learning to write is as much about discipline as it is about language. For most village children, however, such lessons remain out of reach. Their families need workers more than scholars. Every hour spent studying is an hour not spent helping with the harvest. It is not a lack of intelligence. It is simply the reality of survival. Even games teach useful skills. Children chase one another through open fields, strengthening their legs for future farm work. They skip stones across rivers, improving coordination. They carve tiny wooden animals with simple knives under careful adult supervision. Boys and girls invent toys from whatever materials they can find. Small cloth dolls, miniature carts, whistles carved from bamboo, a spinning top made from wood. Imagination costs nothing, and children have plenty of it. As they grow older, responsibilities increase. A 10-year-old may help care for younger brothers and sisters. A 12-year-old can carry heavier loads. Teenagers often perform nearly the same work as adults. Childhood, by modern standards, is relatively short. The village depends on everyone contributing according to their ability. Respect for parents and elders is taught from the earliest years. Children greet older relatives politely. They listen before speaking. Helping grandparents is considered an ordinary part of daily life. These values become deeply rooted, shaping families across generations. Of course, children are still children. They laugh. They race through muddy paths after rain. They climb trees when adults are not watching. Sometimes they forget their chores while chasing butterflies across a meadow. A mother calls their names. The game ends. The work resumes. Some things never change.
As evening approaches, the family gathers once again around the cooking fire. The children are tired. Their hands are dusty. Their clothes carry the marks of another busy day. Yet they have learned something. Perhaps how to tie a stronger knot. Perhaps how to recognize approaching rain by watching the clouds. Perhaps how to sharpen a farming tool without damaging its edge. These quiet lessons are rarely written down. They live instead in memory, passed from parent to child, from grandparent to grandchild, across countless generations. History remembers the brilliant scholars who passed the imperial examinations and advised emperors. Their names appear in official records. Their writings survive for centuries. But the overwhelming majority of ancient Chinese children never sat for such examinations. Their education came from the soil beneath their feet, from family, from work, from careful observation, from repeating ordinary tasks until they became second nature. As darkness settles gently over the village once more, another generation falls asleep beneath the same roof as their parents and grandparents. Tomorrow, they will wake before sunrise, and another quiet lesson will begin.
The village wakes to another peaceful morning. Mist hangs low over the fields, softening the outlines of distant trees. Birdsong drifts through the cool air as the first rays of sunlight touch the rooftops. Before the day's farming begins, another household task quietly demands attention. Today is washing day. For many families in ancient China, laundry is not a quick chore squeezed into a spare hour. It is often an entire day's work. There are no washing machines humming quietly in the corner, no bottles of scented detergent, no dryers spinning warm air through clean clothes. Every piece of clothing must be washed by hand. Every stain must be scrubbed with patience. Every garment must dry beneath the open sky. A woman gathers the family's clothes into a large woven basket. There are not many. Most people own only a few garments. That makes every piece valuable. A torn sleeve or damaged shoe cannot easily be replaced. Good care helps clothing last for many years. The basket is heavier than it looks. Wet cloth becomes surprisingly heavy. She balances it against her hip and begins the familiar walk toward the nearby stream. Several other women are already making the same journey. Some carry wooden buckets, others balance baskets upon their backs. Children often walk beside them, carrying smaller bundles or simply enjoying the chance to leave the house for a while. The path to the water is well worn. Generations of footsteps have pressed it firmly into the earth. No one needs directions. Everyone knows the way. When they reach the stream, the women choose smooth rocks along the riverbank. These stones have served as washing tables for countless years. The water is cool and clear this morning. It flows gently over small pebbles before continuing toward larger rivers far away. The first garment is soaked carefully, then the scrubbing begins. Without modern soap, people rely upon simple materials found in nature. Wood ash mixed with water creates a mild cleaning solution. Sometimes crushed plant leaves are used. In certain regions, natural minerals help remove dirt.
The methods are simple. The effort
is not. Hands rub the fabric again and again. Sleeves receive special attention. Collars are scrubbed repeatedly. Mud from the fields rarely disappears easily. Some stubborn stains never disappear at all. Instead, they slowly become part of the garment's history. After scrubbing, the clothing is rinsed in the flowing water. The current carries away loose dirt and ash. Then the cloth is twisted tightly to remove as much water as possible. It takes strength. A heavy winter jacket requires both hands. Even then, it remains damp. Nearby, children play at the edge of the stream. They float small sticks like tiny boats. They search beneath rocks for interesting insects. Occasionally, they skip smooth stones across the water, counting each bounce with great excitement. Their mothers glance over from time to time, making sure no one wanders too far. The work continues steadily. Conversation fills the morning. Laundry day is one of the few opportunities for women from different households to spend several hours together. They exchange recipes, discuss the weather, share stories about growing children, laugh about small misunderstandings, offer advice for repairing torn clothing. News travels quickly along the riverbank. Someone mentions that a traveling merchant has arrived in a nearby village. Another says the rice crop looks especially healthy this year. Someone else worries that the river seems lower than usual for this season. The stream becomes more than a place to wash clothes. It becomes a place where community quietly grows. Once the washing is finished, the clothes are carried home. Now another challenge begins. Drying them. There are no heated dryers. No spinning machines removing every drop of moisture. Instead, shirts, trousers, blankets, and cloth wraps are hung across bamboo poles, tree branches, or simple rope lines stretched between wooden posts. The sun becomes the family's greatest helper. On warm, breezy days, clothing dries surprisingly quickly. A gentle wind moves the fabric back and forth, carrying away the remaining moisture.
The harvest has been gathered. The busiest days of autumn are slowly coming to an end. Across the countryside, the fields no longer glow with tall green crops. Instead, they lie quiet beneath pale golden grass and freshly turned earth, waiting patiently for another spring. The mornings are different now. When the first rooster calls before dawn, the air feels sharp and cold. A thin layer of frost clings to the rooftops. The farmer steps outside and notices his breath drifting away like tiny white clouds. Winter is arriving. For people living in ancient China, winter is not simply another season, it is a challenge that requires careful preparation. Unlike modern homes, there are no radiators warming every room, no electric heaters humming softly through the night, no insulated walls filled with modern materials. Keeping warm depends entirely on planning ahead. Months before the first cold wind arrives, families begin collecting firewood. Every fallen branch matters. Children gather bundles of dry sticks from nearby forests. Teenagers carry heavier logs balanced across their shoulders. Even elderly family members help by tying smaller bundles together with rope. The pile beside the house slowly grows taller. Each piece of wood represents future warmth. The family hopes they have collected enough. No one can predict how long the winter will last.
Inside the house, preparations continue. Small cracks in the earthen walls are filled with fresh clay. Loose roof straw is replaced before snow or heavy rain can find its way inside. Doors are adjusted to close more tightly. Simple cloth is sometimes hung across entrances to block cold drafts. None of these improvements seem impressive, yet together they make a noticeable difference. The grandmother runs her hand along one wall. She feels a tiny stream of cold air slipping through a narrow crack.
Before sunset, she carefully seals it with damp clay. Tomorrow morning, the room will be a little warmer. Every small repair counts. As the days grow shorter, darkness arrives much earlier. Without electric lighting, families naturally spend more time indoors. The cooking fire becomes the heart of the home. Everyone gathers around it. Parents prepare simple meals. Children listen to stories. Grandparents repair tools or weave baskets while enjoying the warmth of the glowing embers. The fire provides more than heat. It creates a place where the family spends time together. Even sleeping arrangements change during winter. Instead of spreading out across the room, everyone sleeps closer together. Shared body heat helps keep the cold away. Extra blankets made from hemp, cotton, or layered cloth are brought out from storage. Some families place fresh straw beneath their sleeping mats to create an extra layer of insulation between themselves and the cold earth. It is surprisingly effective. Not luxurious, but effective. Clothing becomes heavier as well. Several thin layers trap warm air better than one thick garment. Old jackets repaired countless times over the years are worn once again. Children often look slightly larger beneath all the extra clothing. They move a little more slowly. Their laughter, however, sounds exactly the same. Outside, the village changes completely. Trees stand bare against the grey sky. The familiar songs of summer birds disappear. The rice paddies, once filled with shimmering water, now lie still and empty. Morning chores become harder. Drawing water from the well feels painful against cold hands. Wooden tools become icy before sunrise.
Even simple tasks require greater effort. The farmer walks towards the animal shelter, carrying fresh straw. The chickens huddle together in one corner. The family's pig sleeps beneath a thick layer of bedding. Animals need protection too. Healthy livestock means food and income when warmer weather returns. No one neglects them. Food also changes with the season. Fresh vegetables become less common. Instead, families rely on supplies carefully preserved during autumn. Pickled cabbage, salted vegetables, dried beans, stored grain, perhaps a little dried fish hanging from the ceiling beams. The meals are simple, but they are enough. Every jar opened during winter represents work completed months earlier. Without those preparations, the season would become much more difficult. Winter storms sometimes keep families indoors for several days. Strong winds whistle through the trees. Snow, though heavier in northern China than in many southern regions, occasionally blankets rooftops and village paths. Children rush outside with excitement. Adults smile briefly before returning to practical concerns. Someone still needs to fetch water. Someone must feed the animals. Someone has to keep the fire burning. Life does not pause because of snow.
Even during the coldest months, work continues. Tools are repaired, baskets are woven, clothing is mended, ropes are twisted from plant fibers. The quieter season offers time for tasks impossible during the busy harvest months.
Hands remain occupied even when fields rest beneath winter skies. Sometimes, after the evening meal, the grandfather tells stories from his youth. He remembers a winter so cold that the nearby stream froze completely. Children laugh in disbelief. They have never seen such a thing. Perhaps the story grows slightly more dramatic each year. No one minds. The warmth of the fire makes every tale more enjoyable. Outside, the wind continues whispering through the darkness. Inside, the family feels safe. Not because life is easy, but because they prepared carefully. History often remembers the magnificent winter palaces of emperors, where large fires warmed elegant halls and servants attended every comfort. The ordinary people of ancient China knew a very different winter. They depended on stacked wood fire, patched blankets, shared warmth, simple meals, and quiet determination. They measured wealth not by luxury, but by whether there would be enough fuel to last until spring. As the fire slowly settles into glowing embers, the family adds one final log before bedtime. The flames rise gently once more. Outside, frost quietly forms across the sleeping village. Inside, everyone pulls their blankets a little closer. Spring is still many weeks away, but for tonight, the little house remains warm enough. And sometimes, in the middle of a long winter, that is more than enough.
Winter eventually loosens its grip. The last traces of frost disappear from the fields. Fresh green shoots begin pushing through the earth once again. Birds return to the trees. The village slowly comes alive with the familiar sounds of another growing season. At first, everyone welcomes the warmer weather. After months of cold mornings and smoky fires, the gentle spring sunshine feels almost magical. Children spend more time outdoors. Farmers no longer need heavy layers of clothing. The fields become busy once again. But spring never stays for long. Little by little, the days grow hotter. The mornings become warmer. The afternoons become brighter. The cool evening breeze arrives later each day. Before long, summer settles across the countryside. For the people of ancient China, summer is both a blessing and a burden. The crops need warmth to grow. Rice fields shimmer beneath the sunlight. Vegetables flourish. Fruit trees become heavy with ripening produce. The land appears full of life. Yet the same sun that feeds the crops also tests the people who care for them. The farmer steps outside just before sunrise. He knows that every cool moment is precious. By midday, working beneath the open sky will become much harder. He adjusts his wide straw hat and begins the walk toward the rice fields. The air already feels warm against his skin. A faint mist rises from the flooded paddies, giving the landscape a peaceful appearance. For a little while, the world seems calm. Soon, the sun climbs higher. Its light becomes stronger. The gentle warmth of early morning slowly changes into relentless heat. The farmer wipes sweat from his forehead. Only an hour has passed. His tunic is already damp. Each movement feels heavier than it did during spring.
Bending to plant rice requires more effort. Lifting water buckets becomes increasingly tiring. Even walking through the muddy fields seems slower. The air itself feels thick. There is almost no wind. The broad straw hat protects his face from direct sunlight, but it cannot cool the rest of his body. Sweat trickles down his neck. His hands become slippery against the wooden handle of his hoe. Nearby, his wife works quietly among the vegetable garden. She pauses occasionally to stretch her aching back. A woven basket beside her slowly fills with cucumbers, beans, and leafy greens. She has learned not to rush. Working too quickly beneath the afternoon sun only brings greater exhaustion. Patience becomes another useful tool. Children feel the heat as well. They carry smaller baskets than the adults, yet even those become tiring after several trips. Whenever possible, they refill clay cups with cool well water. Drinking often is important, although few people understand exactly why. They simply know that thirsty workers grow weak. Water becomes one of the day's greatest treasures. The family drinks carefully. Not because water is scarce during summer, but because every bucket still requires someone to carry it from the well. Nothing arrives effortlessly. Around midday, the village grows unusually quiet. Even the birds seem less active. Dogs stretch beneath the shade of trees. Chickens search for cooler patches of ground. The insects, however, seem more energetic than ever. Cicadas begin their endless chorus from the branches overhead. Their loud buzzing fills the air from morning until evening. For many villagers, the sound becomes part of summer itself. After a while, they hardly notice it. Mosquitoes are far less welcome. As the day grows hotter, they gather around standing water. Rice paddies provide perfect places for them to breed. Workers wave them away constantly, sometimes with a hand, sometimes with a leafy branch, sometimes by simply ignoring them. There are too many to chase away forever. By afternoon, the ground itself seems to radiate heat.
Before the village is fully awake, while the morning mist still rests gently over the fields, a small group quietly leaves the houses. They are not heading toward the rice paddies. They are not carrying baskets of vegetables to the market. Today's task is different. They are going to gather firewood. For many families in ancient China, firewood is as important as food. Without it, breakfast cannot be cooked, water cannot be boiled, the house grows cold during winter. Simple meals become impossible to prepare. Every cooking fire begins with someone willing to spend hours collecting fuel. The chore never truly ends. A father adjusts a coil of rope around his shoulder. Beside him, his 12-year-old daughter carries a small hand axe. Her younger brother holds an empty woven basket nearly as large as himself. The family walks beyond the edge of the village toward a nearby woodland. The journey is familiar. They have followed this path hundreds of times. Each season changes the forest in subtle ways. In spring, young leaves cover every branch. During summer, the trees provide welcome shade from the sun. Autumn covers the ground with dry leaves. Winter leaves the branches bare against the pale sky. No matter the season, the forest offers something valuable. The family does not cut down healthy trees unless absolutely necessary. Good timber is too important to waste. Instead, they search patiently for fallen branches. Storms often scatter broken limbs across the forest floor. Strong winds become quiet helpers, saving people much of the hard work. The father pauses beside an old oak tree. A thick branch lies beneath it. The wood is dry. Today, there is only room for wood. As midday approaches, the family stops beside a small stream. The cool water provides a welcome chance to rest. Simple lunches are unpacked. Cold rice, pickled vegetables, perhaps a few chestnuts gathered during autumn. The meal is modest, yet the peaceful surroundings make it satisfying. No one speaks very much. The forest itself provides enough company. After the short break, the work resumes. One final bundle, then another. The father judges the growing pile. It should last several days.
perhaps a week if used carefully. During winter, it would disappear much faster. That thought quietly reminds everyone that another gathering trip will soon be necessary. The return journey is always more difficult. The baskets are now full. Rope cuts gently into tired shoulders. The heavy bundles sway slightly with every step. Walking uphill becomes noticeably slower. No one complains. There is little point. Every family in the village faces the same chore. As they approach home, thin columns of smoke rise from neighboring houses. Other families have already begun preparing the evening meal. The smell of cooking rice drifts through the air. It reminds everyone why today's work mattered. The daughter carefully stacks the larger logs beneath the roof overhang where rain cannot easily reach them. The younger brother arranges smaller sticks into neat bundles. The father places kindling beside the cooking hearth. Everything has its proper place. A well-organized woodpile saves valuable time tomorrow morning. The family steps back for a moment. The stack is not especially impressive. It will not last forever, but it represents security. Another week of warm meals. Another week of boiling drinking water. Another week of comfort during cool evenings. History often praises the magnificent forests that supplied timber for palaces, temples, and great ships. Yet far more trees quietly warmed ordinary homes like this one. Each branch gathered by hand. Each log carried across tired shoulders. Each fire built one careful stick at a time. Few people ever thanked the person who gathered the wood. The meal simply appeared. The water quietly boiled. The house remained warm. The quiet effort behind those simple comforts was almost invisible. As evening settles across the village once again, the cooking fire burns brightly inside the little house. The flames crackle softly beneath the clay pot. Outside, the neatly stacked firewood waits patiently for tomorrow. Because in ancient China, the fire never kept itself alive. Someone always had to walk into the forest and bring the warmth home.
That is important. Freshly cut wood burns poorly. Dry wood catches fire much more easily. He kneels and examines it carefully. There are no signs of insects, no soft spots caused by decay. It is worth taking home. The daughter uses her small axe to cut the branch into shorter pieces. Each careful swing echoes softly through the quiet forest. She has practiced for years. Her movements are slow and controlled. No one rushes when using sharp tools. Nearby, her younger brother gathers smaller twigs. These thin sticks are just as valuable as the larger logs. Tiny branches help start the fire. Once the flames grow stronger, thicker wood can be added. Even the smallest bundle has a purpose. Nothing is ignored. As the morning continues, the baskets slowly grow heavier. The father ties larger branches together with rope. Soon they will be carried home across his shoulders. The weight is considerable. Firewood may not seem especially valuable to an outsider, but every bundle represents several future meals. Every stick means another pot of rice can be cooked. The forest is peaceful. Birds sing from high branches. A squirrel races along the trunk of a pine tree before disappearing into the leaves. Sunlight filters through the canopy, creating shifting patterns upon the ground. For a brief moment, the work almost feels relaxing. Then someone bends to lift another heavy bundle. The feeling quickly passes. Firewood is patient work, not exciting work. Sometimes the family discovers fallen bamboo instead of hardwood. Bamboo burns differently. It catches fire quickly, but also burns faster. Hardwood burns more slowly, producing steady heat for cooking. Experienced villagers understand the difference. They collect a mixture whenever possible. Balance is important. The youngest children treat the trip like a quiet adventure. Every unusual mushroom catches their attention. Every colorful bird becomes something to admire. Occasionally, they discover oddly shaped stones or feathers worth taking home. Adults smile but gently remind them not to fill the baskets with treasures.
He speaks calmly. Move your grain to higher shelves. Bring the chickens closer to the house. Tie the boats more securely. No one panics. They simply begin preparing. Experience has taught them that early action is always easier than late action. The family returns home. Large clay jars filled with grain are lifted carefully onto wooden platforms. Blankets are rolled tightly and placed above the floor. Tools are gathered from outside. The youngest children carry whatever they can manage. Even small hands become useful during busy moments. The father walks to the animal shelter. The family's pig seems unusually restless. The chickens cluck nervously. Animals often sense changing weather before people do. He leads them towards slightly higher ground behind the house. The afternoon sky grows darker, not because the sun has set, but because thick gray clouds have covered it. The first drops of rain begin falling, slowly at first, then more steadily. Soon the sound of rain fills the village. It drums softly upon straw roofs. Tiny streams form along the pathways. The river continues rising. Children stand quietly beside their parents. The usual laughter has faded. Everyone watches the water. It creeps forward little by little. There is no sudden wave, no dramatic crash. Floods often arrive patiently, one small step at a time. By evening, the lower fields have disappeared beneath muddy water. Rows of young rice plants vanish beneath the surface. Days of careful work disappear almost silently. The farmer says nothing. There is nothing useful to say. He simply watches. Inside the house, the family lights a small oil lamp. Its gentle glow reflects against the earthen walls. Outside, rain continues through the night. Sleep comes slowly. Every unusual sound wakes someone. The creaking of wood, the splash of water, the distant barking of dogs. Several times, the father steps outside carrying the lamp. Each time he checks the river. Each time it has climbed a little higher. Before dawn, the rain finally begins to weaken. The clouds slowly break apart. Morning light reveals the damage. The river has spread far beyond its usual banks. The lower path leading toward the market has vanished. Several fences lie flat beneath muddy water. A small footbridge has been carried away completely. The fields resemble shallow lakes. For a few long moments, the village remains quiet. Then, almost without speaking, everyone begins working. Neighbors help one another rescue floating baskets. Young men clear fallen branches from the roads. Women prepare warm food for families whose cooking fires were extinguished by the rain.
Children collect scattered firewood before it floats away. No one waits for instructions. Everyone already knows what needs to be done. The farmer walks slowly into his flooded field. Only the tops of a few rice plants remain visible. Most of the crop is gone. Months of labor have disappeared overnight. He kneels. He touches the muddy water with one hand. Then he quietly stands again. There is no anger directed toward the river. Nature cannot be argued with. The only choice is to begin again. During the following days, the water slowly retreats. It leaves behind thick layers of fresh mud, broken branches, scattered stones, dead fish stranded in small puddles. The cleanup takes weeks. The planting begins again where possible. Some crops are saved, others are lost forever. Families share what food they can spare. Those with stronger harvests help neighbors whose fields suffered greater damage. Survival has always depended upon cooperation. History remembers enormous floods that changed the course of dynasties and filled official records. Scholars carefully documented the great disasters. Emperors ordered repairs to massive riverbanks and canals. Yet most floods were smaller than those famous events. They affected only a handful of villages, only a few hundred families. Their stories were rarely written down. Still, for the people who lived through them, those floods were unforgettable. A washed-away bridge, a ruined harvest.
A neighbor offering food when supplies ran low. Those memories lasted far longer than any government record. Several weeks later, green shoots once again begin appearing in the repaired fields. Life slowly returns to its familiar rhythm. The river flows calmly once more, as though nothing had happened. Children play beside its banks again. Fishermen cast their nets. Women collect water. The farmer pauses for a moment before returning to work. He looks at the peaceful river. It seems impossible that it caused so much trouble. But he knows better. Nature has a long memory, and so do the people who live beside it. Tomorrow, the work will continue, just as it always has. Not every day in ancient China is filled with endless work. Not every morning begins with heavy baskets, muddy fields, and aching backs. Every so often, the ordinary rhythm of village life pauses. Today is one of those rare days. It is festival day. The village wakes before sunrise as usual, but something feels different. There is no rush toward the rice paddies, no hurried gathering of farming tools, no anxious talk about weeds or irrigation canals. Instead, people move with a lighter step. The air itself seems more cheerful. Even the children notice the change. A little girl opens the wooden door and smiles. Colorful strips of cloth hang above several neighboring entrances. Someone has swept the village paths more carefully than usual. Fresh branches have been placed beside a small shrine near the center of the village. The quiet signs of celebration are everywhere. Festival days are precious because they are uncommon. For ordinary farming families, every missed day of work matters. Crops continue growing whether people are celebrating or not. Yet these special occasions remind everyone that life is more than labor alone. The grandmother begins preparing breakfast a little earlier than usual. Today's meal is slightly better than an ordinary one. She opens a clay jar that has remained untouched for many weeks. Inside are carefully preserved ingredients saved specifically for this occasion. A little extra rice, some dried fruit, perhaps a handful of chestnuts gathered during autumn. Nothing extravagant, just enough to make the morning feel different. The family sits together around the low wooden table. There is more conversation than usual.
the father laughs at one of the grandfather's old stories.
The melodies are gentle and familiar. Many people know them by heart. Children clap their hands in rhythm. Older villagers quietly hum along. No one is performing for fame. They are simply sharing songs passed down through generations. Nearby, several women prepare festival food over open fires. Steam rises from bamboo baskets. Round dumplings are carefully folded by practiced hands. Sweet rice cakes are arranged neatly on wooden trays. The delicious aromas drift across the entire village. For many children, these special foods are among the happiest memories of the year. They wait patiently, or at least they try to. Games begin after the meal. Young boys test their balance by walking along narrow wooden beams laid across the ground. Girls compete in simple tossing games using small cloth balls. Older teenagers challenge one another in friendly contests of strength. The prizes are modest, perhaps a ribbon, a carved wooden toy, or simply the pride of winning. Everyone applauds the participants. No one seems especially concerned about who comes first. The joy comes from playing together. Storytellers also find eager audiences. An elderly man with a calm voice gathers children beneath the shade of an old tree. He begins telling the tale of a clever rabbit who outwits a proud tiger. The children lean forward eagerly. Even a few adults pause nearby, pretending not to listen while smiling quietly.
Some stories have been told for generations. No one grows tired of hearing them again. As afternoon arrives, relatives exchange small gifts: a woven basket, a hand-sewn cloth, freshly dried tea leaves. Nothing costly, everything meaningful. The value lies in the thought behind the gift rather than its price. The farmer receives a new rope from his brother. His old one had begun to fray. It is exactly the sort of practical gift he appreciates most. For a little while, work is forgotten. The fields remain quiet. The rice continues growing without supervision. The tools rest against the walls of empty sheds. Even the ox seems grateful for the day of rest, lazily chewing grass beneath the shade of a large tree. As the sun begins its slow descent, families gradually return home. The laughter becomes softer. The music fades into the distance. Children carry handmade toys received during the celebration. Some are already asleep on their parents' shoulders before reaching the front door. Inside the house, the cooking fire is lit once more. A simple evening meal is shared. Nothing elaborate. The special foods have already been enjoyed. Tomorrow, breakfast will return to its usual simplicity. So will the work. The fields have been waiting patiently all day. They will still be waiting at sunrise. History often remembers the magnificent festivals held inside imperial palaces, where nobles admired elaborate dances and magnificent displays. Those celebrations were certainly impressive, but they belonged to very few people. Across the countryside, ordinary villagers created quieter festivals filled with familiar songs, homemade food, simple games, and grateful hearts. No golden decorations, no expensive treasures, only neighbors enjoying a rare day without rushing. As darkness settles gently over the village, the final lanterns are extinguished one by one. The stars shine brightly overhead. The children sleep deeply after a day filled with excitement. The adults rest with tired but contented smiles. Tomorrow, the hoes and baskets will come out again. The rice fields will once more demand careful attention. But tonight, the village enjoys one last peaceful moment before ordinary life quietly begins again.
She picks up a simple wooden spindle. Its design is remarkably uncomplicated. A slender stick,
A small weighted wheel near one end. Nothing more. Slowly, she twists the fibers between her fingers. The spindle begins turning. Round and round. The loose fibers stretch into a long, thin strand. Too much force and the thread breaks. Too little and it becomes weak. Years of practice guide every movement. Her hands know exactly how much pressure to use. Nearby, her granddaughter watches carefully. She has watched this process many times before. Soon she will begin learning herself. At first, she will produce uneven thread filled with thick and thin sections. The grandmother smiles, remembering her own first attempts many decades earlier. Everyone begins as a beginner. Spinning thread is not exciting work. The movements repeat endlessly. Twist. Pull. Turn. Twist again. Hours pass quietly. Conversation comes and goes. Sometimes the women sing softly together. Sometimes they work in peaceful silence, listening only to birds outside and the gentle hum of village life.
By midday, several small bundles of thread lie neatly beside the spindle. The work is only beginning. Now the thread must become cloth. Against one wall of the house stands a simple wooden loom. Compared with modern machines, it appears almost unbelievably basic. Wooden beams, crossbars, several cords. Yet this humble tool can produce strong, beautiful fabric. The grandmother carefully stretches dozens of threads across the loom. Each one must remain straight. If a single thread becomes tangled, the entire piece of cloth may suffer. She checks them twice, then a third time. Only when everything is perfect does the weaving begin. Back and forth, back and forth. A wooden shuttle carries thread through the waiting strands. After each pass, another wooden tool gently presses the threads together. The cloth grows almost too slowly to notice. A few inches after an hour, a little more by evening. Patience is the loom's greatest companion. Children occasionally wander inside to watch. The steady clicking of the wooden frame is strangely soothing. For them, it is simply another ordinary sound of home, just like the crackling cooking fire or the morning rooster. The father returns from the fields during the afternoon. His shirt has developed another small tear beneath one arm. He says nothing. He simply hangs it beside the loom. The grandmother notices immediately. She finishes weaving for the day and reaches for a small sewing basket. Inside are precious tools, several carefully protected needles, tiny spools of thread, small scraps of cloth saved from garments too worn to repair. Nothing has been wasted. She studies the tear. A new patch will solve the problem. Selecting the patch requires thought. It should match the fabric as closely as possible. Appearance matters less than strength. The patch must survive another season of hard work. She threads the needle carefully. Her eyesight is not as sharp as it once was. Still, her hands remain steady. Each stitch is small and neat. The repair is almost invisible from a distance. Another year of life has been added to the old shirt. The children examine clothing that once belonged to their older cousins. Sleeves have been shortened, waistbands adjusted. Fresh patches cover places where knees once wore thin. The garments are not new, but they are perfectly useful. Nobody feels embarrassed to wear repaired clothes. In fact, a well-patched garment quietly tells a story. It shows that the owner values hard work and careful living. Nothing is wasted simply because it has grown old. Even tiny scraps of fabric find new purposes. Some become cleaning cloths, others are sewn into blankets. The smallest pieces may be twisted into lamp wicks
or stuffed inside winter jackets for extra warmth. Every thread has value. As evening approaches, the grandmother folds the unfinished cloth carefully. Tomorrow she will continue. Perhaps by the end of the week there will be enough fabric for a new shirt, perhaps only enough for a child's smaller garment. No one hurries. The cloth will be finished when it is finished. History often admires the magnificent silk robes worn by emperors and court officials. Their garments shimmered with brilliant colors and intricate embroidery.
The repaired shirt is ready for another season of work. The loom rests quietly against the wall. Outside, the first light of dawn spreads gently across the village once again. Most mornings follow a familiar routine, but today a different kind of work awaits. A young family is building a new house, not because they desire something larger or more luxurious. Their old home has become too small. A new baby arrived during the spring. The grandparents have grown older. The family simply needs a little more space. In ancient China, building a house is rarely the job of professional builders alone. Neighbors help neighbors. Relatives help relatives. The entire village becomes part of the project. Just after sunrise, men and women begin arriving with simple tools resting on their shoulders. Wooden shovels, hand saws, ropes woven from plant fibers, wooden mallets, bamboo baskets. Compared with a modern construction site, the collection of tools seems almost unbelievably simple. There are no loud machines, no cranes reaching into the sky, no engines roaring through the morning air. Only people, their hands, and many years of practical experience. The first task is choosing the ground carefully. The village elder walks slowly across the empty piece of land. He studies the slope. He notices where rainwater naturally flows after storms. A good house should remain dry whenever possible. Building too close to a stream risks flooding. Building on unstable soil invites future problems. The decision cannot be rushed. Once everyone agrees, the work begins. Several young men use wooden stakes to mark the corners of the future house. A rope is stretched tightly between them. The outline slowly appears. For now, it is nothing more than a simple rectangle drawn upon the earth. Yet everyone can already imagine the finished home. Children watch with fascination. To them, it seems almost magical. Yesterday, there was only empty ground. Today, a house is beginning to appear. The foundation comes first. Using wooden shovels and iron-tipped spades, the workers dig shallow trenches. The soil is heavy after recent rain. Each basket of earth must be carried away by hand. No machine arrives to make the task easier. Sweat appears long before the morning grows warm. Nearby, several women prepare a mixture of clay, sand, straw, and water. Large wooden paddles stir everything together. Soon, children climb into the mixture barefoot, laughing as they carefully stomp it into a thick, even paste. It feels strange beneath their feet. Cool, soft, sticky. The adults smile. Children have always enjoyed this part of building. Their laughter becomes another useful tool. The thick mud mixture will eventually form the house's walls. It may not look impressive now, but once dried beneath the sun, it becomes surprisingly strong. Wooden posts are raised next. This is one of the most difficult moments. Several men lift each heavy beam together. Others guide thick ropes from both sides. Slowly, carefully, the post rises. Nobody speaks very much. Everyone watches closely. When the beam finally stands upright, a quiet sigh of relief passes through the group. One by one, more posts follow. Soon the skeleton of the house stretches towards the sky. Now the building finally begins to resemble a home. The roof frame requires even greater precision. Long wooden beams must fit together securely without modern metal brackets. Instead, experienced carpenters shape each joint carefully using hand tools. Wood locks into wood. The craftsmanship is remarkable. No nails hold many of the most important connections. Only careful design. Only patient skill. The younger workers observe every movement. Someday, they will build homes of their own. Learning happens through watching. Nobody hands them an instruction book. The older craftsmen simply say, "Watch closely." And they do. By midday, the roof frame is complete. Everyone pauses beneath the shade of a nearby tree. Lunch is shared. Large bowls of rice, steamed vegetables, pickled cabbage, a little bean soup. Someone has brought fresh tea. Meals taste especially satisfying after several hours of lifting heavy timber. Conversation becomes livelier. People joke about whose back will ache the most tomorrow. Everyone laughs. The afternoon is devoted to the walls. The thick clay mixture is packed tightly between wooden frames, layer after layer.
Each section is pressed firmly into place. Too loosely and cracks will appear later. Too tightly and the mixture becomes difficult to shape. Again, experience guides every movement. There are no rulers, no measuring lasers, only practiced eyes. As the walls slowly rise, children begin carrying bundles of straw towards the roof. These will soon become the thatched covering protecting the family from rain and summer sun. Each bundle is tied carefully to wooden beams, using rope made from twisted grass fibers. The work is repetitive, yet every knot matters. A poorly tied bundle may blow away during the first strong storm. As evening approaches, the house is far from finished. The walls still need time to dry. The roof requires more layers. Doors and shutters have not yet been installed. Building a home cannot be completed in a single day. It may take weeks, sometimes longer. The pace does not bother anyone. Good work takes time. Before everyone returns home, the family preparing the new house bows respectfully to their neighbors. There is no payment waiting, no written contract. The understanding is simple. Someday another family will need help. When that day comes, today's workers will gladly return the kindness they received. The village survives through cooperation. One pair of hands can achieve only so much. 20 pairs can build a home. History remembers magnificent palaces with towering gates and golden rooftops. Architects who designed imperial cities became famous. Their buildings still inspire admiration centuries later. Yet the humble homes built by ordinary villagers rarely appear in history books. Most disappeared long ago. The earth returned to the earth, the wood slowly weathered away. Only faint traces remain beneath the soil. But for the families who lived inside them, these modest houses were every bit as important as an emperor's palace. Children took their first steps on those earthen floors. Grandparents shared stories beside those cooking fires. Generations found warmth beneath those simple roofs. As the sun disappears behind the distant hills, the unfinished house stands quietly at the edge of the village. Tomorrow, more work will continue. Another wall, another roof beam, another careful handful of clay. Slowly, patiently, a home will rise from nothing more than earth, wood, straw, and the willing hands of ordinary people. The new house slowly takes shape. Its walls dry beneath the warm sunshine. The roof grows thicker with each bundle of straw tied into place. Life in the village returns to its familiar rhythm. The fields need attention. The animals must be fed. The cooking fire is lit before dawn. But today, the farmer has another task. He must travel to the nearest town. Such journeys are not made every week. For many ordinary families, they happen only when truly necessary. Perhaps salt has run out.
Perhaps a broken farming tool needs replacing. Perhaps important news must be delivered to a relative. Whatever the reason, the trip requires careful planning. The town lies nearly 20 kilometers away. By modern standards, that may seem like a short drive. For someone traveling on foot, it is a full day's journey. The farmer wakes even earlier than usual. The stars still shine overhead when he quietly dresses. His wife hands him a small cloth bundle containing his lunch. Cold rice, a few pickled vegetables, a boiled egg if the family can spare one. Simple food travels well. She also fills a clay flask with fresh water. There are streams along the road, but clean drinking water cannot always be trusted.
The farmer thanks her with a gentle nod. Words are unnecessary. The journey begins in silence. The village remains asleep as he steps onto the narrow dirt path leading toward the distant hills. Only the sound of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl accompany him. Soon the eastern sky begins to brighten. Morning mist drifts across the fields like thin white blankets. The world feels peaceful. Walking becomes almost meditative. One step, then another. The rhythm settles naturally. The path winds through rice paddies sparkling with dew. It passes small bamboo groves where birds greet the rising sun. Occasionally, the farmer meets another traveler, a merchant balancing baskets across his shoulders, a monk carrying only a walking staff and a small cloth bag, a woman leading 2 goats toward another village. Each offers a polite greeting. Then everyone continues on their own way. The roads are simple. Most are little more than worn tracks pressed into the earth by countless footsteps. After heavy rain, they become muddy and slippery. During dry seasons, dust rises with every step. Travel requires patience more than speed. Several hours pass. The farmer crosses a narrow wooden bridge spanning a gentle stream. He pauses briefly. The cool water below reflects the blue morning sky. He kneels to wash his face. The cold water feels refreshing after hours of walking. Nearby, dragonflies skim gracefully across the surface. Tiny fish dart between smooth stones. Nature offers quiet company. As the sun climbs higher, the road grows busier. More travelers appear. Ox carts creak beneath heavy loads of grain. Donkeys carry bundles of firewood. Traveling craftsmen transport their tools, wrapped carefully in cloth. The closer everyone gets to town, the more the road becomes. Only the handle needs replacing. Rather than buying an entirely new tool, the blacksmith fits a freshly carved handle onto the old blade. It costs much less. Nothing useful should ever be wasted. The repair takes only a short while. The farmer thanks the craftsman and continues his errands. Before leaving town, he purchases a few needles for his wife. Their old sewing needles have grown dull after years of repairing clothes. They are tiny objects, easy to overlook, yet they will become some of the most valuable items he carries home. As afternoon slowly fades, the farmer begins the long walk back. His basket is heavier now, not because he bought many things, because each item is important. Salt, needles, a repaired hoe, perhaps a small sweet rice cake tucked carefully inside the basket as a surprise for the children. The return journey feels longer. His legs are tired. The sun rests lower in the sky. Shadows stretch across the road. Yet there is comfort in heading home. The familiar outline of his village eventually appears beyond the fields. Smoke rises gently from evening cooking fires. The family dog barks happily as he approaches. The children run to greet him. Their eyes immediately search the basket. The sweet rice cakes quickly disappear. Laughter fills the yard. Inside the house, the farmer carefully places the salt inside a clay jar. The new needles are handed to his wife. The repaired hoe leans once again against the wall, ready for tomorrow's work. Every item has found its proper place. History often remembers the great roads built by emperors to connect distant provinces across the empire. Those impressive highways carried armies, officials, and merchants. But ordinary people experienced those roads one step at a time, with sore feet, simple lunches, heavy baskets, and quiet determination. For them, even the shortest journey required an entire day. As darkness settles gently over the village, the farmer stretches his tired legs beside the cooking fire. Tomorrow he will return to the fields. The town already feels far away, its busy streets replaced once more by the peaceful sounds of crickets, rustling bamboo, and another ordinary night in ancient China.
The farmer's journey to the town is over. The repaired hoe rests against the wall. The precious bag of salt has been tucked safely into a clay jar. Life slips quietly back into its familiar rhythm. Before the first rays of sunlight reach the village, another day begins. The house is still dark. Outside, only the distant call of a rooster breaks the silence. Inside, one person is already awake. The mother. For her, the day always begins with the fire. There is no button to press, no stove waiting to light itself. Every meal starts with the same careful routine. She kneels beside yesterday's hearth. The ashes are cool now, pale grey after the previous night's cooking. With gentle hands, she brushes them aside, searching for any tiny ember that may still be alive. Sometimes she is lucky. A faint orange glow remains hidden beneath the ashes. She smiles quietly. A living ember saves both time and precious firewood. She places a handful of dry grass over it. Then several thin twigs. Slowly, she blows warm air through a hollow bamboo tube. The tiny ember begins to brighten. A thread of smoke rises. Another gentle breath. A small flame appears. Soon the fire is alive once more. On other mornings, there are no embers. Everything must begin again from scratch. She arranges dry kindling carefully. The smallest sticks first. Slightly thicker branches next. Finally, one larger piece of firewood rests on top. Building a fire is almost like building a small house. Every piece supports another. If the arrangement is careless, the flames struggle to grow. If it is patient, the fire rewards her. The cooking hearth is simple. It is built from packed clay and stone. A heavy iron pot rests above the flames. Some families use clay pots instead, depending on what they own. Neither looks impressive. Both have served faithfully for many years. The first task is boiling water. Water collected from wells, rivers, or streams is often safer after boiling. The family may not understand invisible germs, but generations of experience have taught them that boiled water is usually the wiser choice.
Waste is never encouraged. The fire itself also requires attention. The larger logs are pushed aside.
The remaining coals are covered carefully with ash. If enough heat survives beneath the ashes, tomorrow's fire will be easier to start. The mother thinks ahead. She always thinks ahead. By midday, the fire burns brightly again. Lunch is often prepared using the same hearth. A simple vegetable soup, steamed buns, rice left over from breakfast. Nothing is thrown away if it can still be eaten safely. Even small scraps find their purpose. Bones flavor soup. Vegetable peels feed animals. Ashes from the fire may later help clean laundry or enrich garden soil. Very little leaves the household without serving another use. As afternoon turns towards evening, preparations for dinner begin. The father returns from the fields carrying fresh vegetables harvested that day. The children bring mushrooms gathered from nearby woods, carefully checked by the grandmother before cooking. The family works together. One washes vegetables. Another cuts firewood. Someone else grinds garlic and ginger using a smooth stone. Every meal becomes a shared effort. Cooking over an open fire demands constant attention. The flames cannot be ignored. If they grow too strong, the food burns. If they become too weak, the meal takes far longer than expected. The mother adjusts the logs repeatedly, a little closer, a little farther apart. She has spent thousands of hours beside this fire. Its behavior is as familiar as an old friend. Smoke is an unavoidable companion. Even with a small opening in the roof to let it escape, much of it lingers inside the house.
The cooking fire has finally gone out. Only a few glowing embers remain beneath the layer of ash. Outside, the village grows wonderfully quiet. The last voices fade into the darkness. A dog barks somewhere in the distance. Crickets begin their steady evening song, joined now and then by the gentle croaking of frogs near the rice fields. Another ordinary day has come to an end. The family is tired. Not the kind of tiredness that comes from staring at a screen all day, the deeper kind. The kind earned by lifting baskets, working in muddy fields, carrying water, chopping firewood, and walking for miles beneath the open sky. Their bodies are ready for sleep. But preparing for bed in ancient China is very different from what most people know today. There are no thick mattresses waiting in separate bedrooms, no fluffy pillows, no warm duvets fresh from a washing machine. Most ordinary farming families sleep in a single shared room. The house is quiet, but never completely silent. The wooden beams creak gently as the night air cools. A breeze slips through the small window. Somewhere outside, an ox shifts its weight inside the shelter. These sounds are familiar. No one pays much attention to them anymore. The youngest daughter begins rolling out woven sleeping mats. They are made from straw, reeds, or bamboo, depending on what materials are available nearby. The mats are surprisingly durable. Some have been used for many years. Their surfaces are smooth from countless nights of sleep. Each evening they are spread carefully across the packed earthen floor. Each morning they are rolled up again to create space for the day's work. Nothing inside the house remains in one place forever. The same room serves many purposes. It is a kitchen, a workshop, a dining room, and, when darkness arrives, a bedroom. The grandmother unfolds several blankets that have been stored inside a wooden chest. They are not especially thick. Most are stitched together from layers of cloth collected over many years. Some contain patches from old shirts that were too worn to repair. Others include pieces of blankets passed down through the family. Every layer tells a quiet story.
The grandfather smiles as he recognizes one faded blue patch. It once belonged to a jacket he wore as a young man. The fabric has outlived the jacket itself. Now it keeps his grandchildren warm. Pillows are simple as well. Some are filled with straw. Others contain dried reeds, buckwheat husks, or soft plant fibers. They are much firmer than modern pillows. Many people today might find them uncomfortable. The villagers think nothing of it. Comfort is shaped by habit. Children settle down first. The youngest boy curls beneath a blanket beside his older sister. They whisper quietly about the dragonfly they chased that afternoon. Their mother gently reminds them that tomorrow comes early. The whispering continues for another minute anyway. Eventually, silence wins. The father steps outside one final time before bed. He looks toward the sky. The stars shine brilliantly above the village. Without electric lights, the night sky appears almost endless. Thousands upon thousands of stars stretch across the heavens. The bright band of the Milky Way glows faintly overhead. The farmer does not know the names of distant galaxies. He simply enjoys the familiar sight. His father looked at the same stars. His grandfather did too. The sky changes very little from one generation to the next. Back inside, the mother checks the cooking fire. She carefully spreads the ashes across the remaining embers. If even one small coal survives into morning, tomorrow's breakfast will be easier to prepare. Then she closes the wooden door. A simple wooden bar slides into place. It offers some security. Not perfect security, but enough to help the family sleep peacefully. As everyone settles beneath their blankets, the room grows wonderfully still. The grandmother quietly murmurs a familiar bedtime story for the youngest children. She tells of a wise old turtle who crossed a great river one careful step at a time. The ending is always the same. History often remembers the magnificent sleeping chambers of emperors, decorated with carved furniture, painted screens, silk curtains, and luxurious bedding. Those rooms represented extraordinary wealth. Yet almost everyone else in ancient China ended each day exactly like this family, sleeping side by side on simple woven mats, sharing warmth, sharing stories, sharing the quiet comfort of knowing they had made it safely through another ordinary day. Outside, the stars slowly begin to fade. A pale ribbon of light appears along the eastern horizon. The rooster has not crowed yet, but morning is already on its way. And before long, the sleeping mats will be rolled up once again, making room for another day of work in the gentle, unhurried rhythm of ancient China.
The sleeping mats are rolled away. The blankets are folded neatly into the wooden chest. The tiny ember hidden beneath the ashes has survived the night, and before long, the cooking fire is burning once again. Breakfast is simple. Warm millet porridge, a few pickled vegetables, fresh tea for the grandparents. The day has only just begun. Yet before anyone walks to the fields, before the animals are fed, before the vegetables are watered, there is one chore that cannot be ignored. The family needs water. Not a little water, a great deal of it. Modern homes hide water behind walls. A simple turn of a handle fills a sink, a bath, or a cooking pot. The villagers of ancient China know nothing like that. Every drop used throughout the day must first be carried home. The mother reaches for 2 wooden buckets resting beside the doorway. Years of use have polished the smooth handles until they shine softly in the morning light. The buckets are empty now. Before long, they will feel surprisingly heavy. Her eldest son picks up a bamboo carrying pole. The pole is long and slightly curved.
A rope hangs from each end. One bucket will be tied to each side. When balanced correctly, the weight rests across the shoulders instead of the arms. It is a clever design. Simple, strong, and used across China for centuries. Together, they begin the familiar walk toward the village well. Some villages are fortunate enough to have a deep stone well near the center of the community. Others rely on springs, streams, or rivers. This village has both a well and a nearby stream, but drinking water usually comes from the well whenever possible. Its water is cleaner and less likely to become muddy after heavy rain. The path is already busy. Several neighbors are making the same journey. An elderly woman carries a single bucket. A teenage girl balances 2 clay jars inside a woven basket. A young father walks carefully while holding his little daughter's hand. Fetching water is not considered anyone's special job. Everyone helps. Everyone drinks. Everyone needs water. The well stands beneath the shade of a large elm tree. Its circular stone walls have become smooth after generations of hands pulled ropes across the edge. The wooden roof protecting it from leaves and rain has been repaired many times. The structure is old, older than most people in the village, perhaps even older than their grandparents. The mother lowers a wooden bucket tied to a thick rope. It disappears slowly into the darkness. For a brief moment, silence. Then, a soft splash echoes upward. She waits, then begins pulling. The rope feels heavier with every step. Water is surprisingly heavy. The bucket rises inch by inch. Her hands know exactly how to grip the rough rope without burning her palms. Soon, the bucket appears above the stone rim. Clear water glistens in the morning sun. She pours it carefully into one of the family's wooden buckets. Not a single drop is wasted. The process begins again. Lower, splash, pull, lift, pour, again and again. The son watches carefully. He has done this many times before, but he knows that patience matters. A bucket lifted too quickly may strike the stone wall. The buckets sway together like quiet companions. The walk home seems longer than the walk to the well, not because the distance has changed, because every step now carries extra weight. His shoulders gradually begin to ache. The bamboo pole presses firmly across his back. He keeps walking. His father once carried these buckets. Someday, perhaps his own children will too. Back at the house, the mother pours the fresh water into several large clay jars. These jars keep the water cool throughout the day. Each one is covered with a wooden lid to keep out dust and insects. The family knows exactly how much water they have. Every cup matters. Some will be used for cooking, some for drinking, some for washing vegetables, a little for cleaning bowls. Very little can be spared. Even bathing requires careful planning. Most people do not fill large tubs every day. Instead, they wash their faces and hands regularly. A full bath is a much rarer event, especially during colder seasons. Water is too valuable to waste. The grandmother pours a small amount into a kettle resting above the cooking fire. Soon, gentle steam begins rising into the air. Hot water will be ready for tea. The youngest children help water the vegetable garden. Each receives a tiny wooden dipper. They carefully pour water around the roots instead of onto the leaves. The grandmother smiles. "They're learning," she says softly. The vegetables seem grateful.
By afternoon, one of the clay jars is already half empty. The family has done nothing unusual. They have simply lived, cooked, drunk, washed, fed the animals. Water disappears quietly. No one notices until the jars begin to empty again. Tomorrow morning, the journey to the well will begin once more. History remembers the enormous canals and engineering projects that carried water across great distances to serve cities and imperial capitals. Those achievements were extraordinary. But the vast majority of people experienced water much differently. One bucket, one rope, one careful walk home at a time. No grand machines, no flowing pipes, just patient hands repeating the same quiet task every single day. As evening falls, the final bucket of water is poured into the cooking pot for tomorrow's breakfast. The clay jars stand quietly beside the wall, half full now, half empty, depending on how one chooses to see them. By sunrise, they will begin their slow journey towards emptiness once again. And someone will pick up the bamboo pole, walk back to the well, and bring another day of life home, one bucket at a time.
The clay jars are filled with fresh water once again. The morning chores have begun. Smoke rises gently from the cooking fire, and the family finishes a quiet breakfast before stepping outside into the cool morning air. The fields are waiting. The vegetable garden needs attention. But before anyone can think about growing crops, another part of the household must be cared for: the animals. For many farming families in ancient China, animals are not simply possessions. They are hard-working companions. They help feed the family. They make farming possible. And, like every member of the household, they depend on daily care. The first stop is the chicken yard. The youngest daughter slides open the small wooden gate, and within seconds the quiet yard bursts into motion. A dozen chickens hurry towards her feet, clucking with excitement. They know exactly what time breakfast is served. The girl laughs softly as she scatters handfuls of grain across the ground. The chickens peck eagerly, racing one another for every seed. Some flap their wings. Others puff out their feathers as if trying to appear larger than they really are. Even something as ordinary as feeding chickens brings a little life to the quiet morning. The family depends on these birds more than outsiders might imagine. A single egg may become breakfast. Several eggs can be traded at the village market. During difficult years, healthy chickens are a small but valuable form of savings. The grandmother walks slowly through the yard, collecting eggs from simple straw nests. She handles each one carefully.
There are only 6 today. Some mornings there are more. Some mornings there are none at all. The chickens decide, not the family. Each egg is placed gently into a woven basket lined with soft straw. A cracked egg cannot be sold. Carefulness matters. The children inspect the chickens one by one. A bird that appears sick is noticed immediately. A limp, missing feathers, cloudy eyes. The family pays close attention. Losing even one healthy hen can make life noticeably harder. From the chicken yard, the father walks toward the pig shelter. The family's pig lifts its head as soon as it hears footsteps. Its ears twitch with recognition. The pig is intelligent enough to know that people often arrive carrying food. The father empties a wooden bucket filled with vegetable scraps, rice bran, and leftover grain into a feeding trough. Nothing useful has gone to waste. Yesterday's cabbage leaves, peelings from turnips, bits of spoiled vegetables that people no longer wish to eat. The pig happily accepts them all. The animal eats with remarkable enthusiasm. The children giggle at the loud snorting sounds. The pig seems entirely unconcerned with manners. After breakfast comes cleaning. The shelter must remain as dry and clean as possible. Fresh straw is spread across the ground. Old bedding is removed and carried to the compost pile.
Eventually, it will become fertilizer for the fields. Very little leaves the farm without serving another purpose. Even animal waste becomes part of next season's harvest. Finally, the family visits the most valuable animal of all, the ox. The large animal stands patiently beneath a simple wooden shelter. Its broad shoulders and calm eyes reflect years of quiet labor. Unlike the energetic chickens or the noisy pig, the ox rarely rushes. Every movement seems slow, steady, thoughtful. The farmer gently pats its neck before placing fresh hay into the feeding rack. The ox chews slowly, barely lifting its head. Trust has grown between them over many years. This animal has helped plow every field the family owns. Together, they have endured floods, droughts, scorching summers, and freezing winters. The farmer knows the ox's habits almost as well as he knows those of his own children. He checks its hoofs carefully. A small stone trapped beneath the hoof could cause pain tomorrow's work. He brushes away dried mud from its legs. He examines the leather harness hanging beside the shelter. A broken strap during plowing season would create serious problems. Better to repair it today than regret waiting until tomorrow. The youngest son brings a bucket of fresh water. The ox drinks deeply. Its long tongue curls into the water with surprising gentleness. The boy smiles. The animal seems enormous beside him, yet he has never feared it. It has always been part of the family. When plowing season arrives, the ox becomes the strongest worker in the village. Hour after hour, it pulls the heavy wooden plow through thick earth. The farmer walks behind, guiding both the tool and the animal. Neither could do the work alone. They depend on one another completely. The grandmother often reminds the children, "Take good care of the ox, and the ox will take good care of you." No one argues with her. Experience has proven those words true. Of course, caring for animals is not always peaceful. One morning, the chickens escape through a loose section of fence and immediately discover the vegetable garden. Within moments, they begin scratching enthusiastically around the young cabbage plants. The children race after them, laughing and shouting. The chickens respond by running in every possible direction except the right one. Eventually, every bird is safely returned to its yard. The fence receives immediate repairs. The pig occasionally digs beneath part of its enclosure. The family notices before it escapes completely. More wooden stakes are added. Extra soil is packed firmly against the bottom of the fence. Small repairs prevent larger problems later. As evening approaches, the animals receive one final visit. The chickens settle onto their wooden roosts. The pig curls into its fresh straw. The ox finishes its last mouthful of hay before quietly lying down. The shelters become peaceful. The family knows the animals are safe for another night. History often celebrates the magnificent horses ridden by generals and emperors into famous battles. Those animals became symbols of power and glory. Yet for ordinary villagers, the most important animals were far humbler. A dependable ox, a healthy pig, a handful of hard-working chickens. These quiet companions never appeared in great paintings or official records, but they helped feed millions of families across ancient China. As the stars slowly brighten above the village, the father closes the gate to the animal yard one final time. He pauses for a moment, listening. Soft clucking, the slow chewing of the ox, the gentle rustle of straw. Everything sounds exactly as it should. Tomorrow morning, before the sun rises, the animals will be waiting once again.
And just like every other day, the family will greet them before greeting the fields.
The animal yard is quiet once again. The chickens settle onto their wooden perches. The pig curls into its bed of straw. The old ox sleeps peacefully after another day of steady work. Before long, dawn arrives. The village wakes to another ordinary morning. The cooking fire is lit. Breakfast is shared. The family gathers their tools. Today, their attention returns to the crop that feeds almost everyone around them. Rice. To many people today, rice is simply something poured from a bag into a pot. It is always available, always waiting on a store shelf. But for farming families in ancient China, every grain represents months of careful work. The journey begins long before harvest. It begins with a seed. Early in the spring, the farmer walks towards a small nursery field prepared weeks earlier. This special patch of land is different from the larger rice paddies nearby. The soil has been worked until it is soft and fine. Fresh water covers the surface in a thin, shining layer. The farmer kneels slowly. From a cloth pouch tied around his waist, he takes a handful of carefully saved rice seeds.
These are not ordinary grains from yesterday's meal. They are the strongest seeds saved from last year's best harvest. Choosing good seeds is one of the most important decisions of the entire year. A poor choice now may mean an empty storage jar months later. With practiced hands, he scatters the seeds gently across the wet soil. The motion is smooth and almost graceful. Years of repetition have made it feel natural. The seeds disappear beneath the shallow water. Now comes the hardest part: waiting. For days, very little changes. The family visits the nursery every morning. The water level is checked. Birds are chased away. Nothing seems to happen. Then one morning, tiny green shoots appear. So small they are almost easy to miss. The children smile with excitement. The grandmother nods quietly. She has seen this miracle every spring for more than 60 years. It never grows old.
They remember feeling exactly the same way as children. The grandmother carefully lifts small bundles of young rice plants from the nursery. Their roots remain covered with damp soil. The plants must be handled gently. Too much roughness may damage them. The farmer walks slowly through the flooded field. One plant, then another. Each is pressed carefully into the mud. The rows stretch across the field with remarkable precision. Hour after hour, step after step, plant after plant, the work demands endless patience. By midday, everyone's back begins to ache. Standing bent over for hours is exhausting. The family pauses beneath the shade of a willow tree. Lunch is simple: cold rice, salted vegetables, fresh water carried from the village. The break is brief. The rice cannot wait forever. Back into the muddy water they go. Days later, the field has transformed completely. Thousands upon thousands of young plants stand neatly in rows. The hardest part may be over, but the work has only begun.
Throughout the summer, the family returns to the paddies almost every day. Weeds must be removed before they steal nutrients from the rice. Water levels must remain just right. Too much water can damage the plants. Too little leaves them thirsty beneath the hot sun. The farmer watches the sky almost constantly. Clouds become important neighbors. A gentle rain is welcomed. A violent storm brings worry. Nature decides much of the harvest. People simply do their best to help. The old ox works faithfully throughout the season. It pulls wooden tools that help prepare nearby fields for vegetables and other crops. Although the rice itself is planted mostly by hand, the ox remains one of the family's greatest helpers. Without it, preparing the land would take far longer. Summer slowly fades into autumn. The rice plants change color. Bright green leaves become golden. Heavy heads of grain bend gently towards the earth.
The family smiles each time they visit the fields. Harvest is approaching. One cool morning, the farmer tests a few grains between his fingers. They are firm, dry enough. The time has come. Every available hand joins the harvest. Using small sickles, the family cuts the rice stalks one bundle at a time. The air fills with the gentle swish of blades moving through the stalks. The bundles are tied neatly with strips of straw. Soon they stand upright across the field, like rows of tiny golden tents drying beneath the autumn sun. Children gather any loose stalks left behind. Not a single handful should be wasted. Every grain matters. Once the rice has dried, it is carried home. There another long process begins. The grain must be separated from the stalks. Sometimes the bundles are beaten against wooden frames. Sometimes animals help tread upon them. However it is done, the work is slow. Dust fills the air. Tiny pieces of straw cling to clothing. The family coughs now and then. No one complains. They know what waits at the end. Clean rice, ready for storage. The grandmother pours the finished grain into large clay jars. Each jar is sealed carefully against insects and moisture. The sight brings quiet satisfaction. Months of labor now rest safely inside the house. These jars will feed the family through winter. They represent security, hope, survival. The children peek inside one of the jars. It seems impossible that so much work could end in something so simple. Just thousands of small white grains. History often celebrates China's great agricultural achievements, its vast irrigation systems, and the fertile river valleys that supported enormous populations. Those accomplishments shaped civilizations. But behind every harvest stood ordinary families like this one. Families who planted each seed by hand, who stood ankle-deep in muddy water beneath the summer sun, who trusted the seasons even when nothing was guaranteed. As evening settles over the village, the farmer closes the lid on the final grain jar. He rests one hand upon the smooth clay surface. The harvest is finished. Tomorrow, another season of work will quietly begin. Because in ancient China, growing rice was never a single task. It was a way of life, repeated one careful season at a time.
The last grain jar has been sealed. The autumn harvest is safely stored inside the house. For the first time in many months, the family allows themselves a quiet moment of satisfaction. Their hard work has filled the shelves with enough rice to carry them through the colder months. But life in the village never truly slows. There is always another task waiting. Today, it is not the fields that need attention. It is the tools. A wooden hoe leans against the outside wall. Its handle is worn smooth from years of use. The iron blade has grown dull after cutting through countless weeds and roots. Nearby, a bamboo basket has begun to split along one side. The rope used to lead the ox shows signs of fraying. Nothing has completely broken. Not yet. But experienced farmers understand something important. A small repair today prevents a much larger problem tomorrow. The father gathers the family's tools beneath the shade of a large elm tree. One by one, he lays them on the ground. The hoe, the shovel, the sickle, the wooden rake, the grain flail, even the kitchen knives are placed nearby. Each tool tells the story of many seasons. Scratches cover the wooden handles. The iron bears tiny marks left by stones hidden beneath the soil. These are not signs of neglect. They are signs of honest work. The grandfather kneels beside the old hoe. He runs one rough finger carefully along the edge of the blade. It no longer feels sharp. A dull blade demands more strength from the farmer. Every swing becomes harder. Every hour feels longer. He reaches for a flat sharpening stone. The stone has belonged to the family for decades, perhaps even longer. Its surface has slowly worn smooth from sharpening hundreds of blades. He pours a little water across the stone. Then, with slow and steady movements, he draws the iron edge across it. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The quiet sound repeats over and over. There is no hurry. Sharpening too quickly often ruins the blade. Patience creates the finest edge. The youngest grandson watches closely. The grandfather pauses. Without speaking, he hands the sharpening stone to the boy. The child tries carefully. His movements are clumsy. The blade slides at the wrong angle.
The old man smiles. He gently adjusts the boy's hands. "Not faster," he says softly. "Steadier." The lesson is simple. Good work rarely comes from rushing. Nearby, the mother repairs the split bamboo basket. She selects several fresh strips of bamboo that were soaked overnight until they became flexible. One by one, she weaves them into the damaged section. The broken basket slowly becomes whole again. When she finishes, the repaired area is almost stronger than the original. The basket may carry vegetables for many more years. The eldest daughter examines the rope used for the ox. Several strands have begun to loosen. She untwists the damaged section and replaces it with fresh hemp fibers. Then she twists everything tightly together again. The repair is nearly invisible. The rope feels strong once more. Nothing has been thrown away. Nothing has been replaced. Only repaired. The father walks towards the small shed where his plow rests. The wooden frame remains solid, but one peg has loosened after months of heavy work. He carves a new wooden peg from a small piece of hardwood. The knife moves carefully through the wood. Thin curls fall onto the ground. Soon the peg fits perfectly into place. A few firm taps with a wooden mallet secure it. The plow is ready for another season. The family owns very little iron. Iron is expensive. Every metal tool is treasured. When a blade finally becomes too thin after years of sharpening, it is never discarded carelessly. Instead, it is carried to the village blacksmith. He heats the old metal inside a glowing forge. With patient hammer blows, he reshapes it into something useful again. Perhaps a smaller knife, perhaps a chisel, perhaps a fishing hook. The metal enjoys a second life, sometimes even a third. Wooden handles wear out more quickly than iron blades. The father often replaces them himself. He walks into the nearby woodland and searches for straight young branches. Not every branch is suitable. Some wood splits too easily, some bends too much. He chooses carefully. The branch is cut, its bark is peeled away, then it is left to dry before becoming a new handle. Even this simple task cannot be rushed. Fresh wood shrinks as it dries. A handle fitted too early may become loose later. Patience saves effort. The grandmother sits nearby, sewing small leather covers for the sharpest tools. She has seen too many accidental cuts during busy harvest seasons. A simple cover protects both the blade and the person carrying it. The leather comes from an old sandal beyond repair. Even worn footwear still offers something useful. Nothing truly reaches the end of its purpose until every possible use has been found. By afternoon, the collection of tired tools looks different.
The blades shine softly, the handles feel firm, the baskets stand upright again, the ropes hold tight. The workbench is covered with tiny wood shavings, scraps of hemp, and bamboo strips, signs of careful maintenance, not waste. The children gather the leftover pieces. Even the smallest scraps are saved. Thin bamboo may become knitting needles. Short pieces of rope may tie bundles of vegetables. Tiny wooden offcuts become kindling for tomorrow's fire. Every material has value. History often celebrates the magnificent swords carried by famous generals or the beautifully crafted bronze weapons displayed in royal collections. Those remarkable objects survive in museums today. Yet the simple hoe, the worn sickle, and the patched basket quietly shaped far more lives. Without them, no fields would be planted, no grain harvested, no families fed. These humble tools rarely received admiration, but they earned something greater. They were trusted. As the sun begins to sink behind the hills, the father returns each tool to its familiar place. The sharpened hoe leans against the wall, the repaired basket hangs from a wooden peg, the strong rope is coiled neatly beside the ox's shelter. Everything is ready. Tomorrow morning, the family will pick them up once again, not because they are new, but because they have been cared for. In ancient China, owning something for many years was not unusual. It was expected. A well-made tool was not measured by how long it stayed fashionable. It was measured by how many seasons it faithfully served the hands that used it.
The years pass quietly. One harvest follows another. The seasons continue their familiar cycle. Spring brings fresh green fields. Summer fills the air with the songs of cicadas. Autumn covers the village with golden rice. Winter settles softly over the rooftops. The village changes little, but the people do. The young farmer who once ran across muddy fields now walks more slowly. The heavy baskets feel a little heavier than they once did. His hands are rougher. His hair has begun to turn grey. Small lines appear around his eyes, shaped by years of smiling beneath the sun and squinting into the wind. He notices these changes without surprise. Growing older is simply another part of life. Each morning he still rises before sunrise. Habit has become stronger than any rooster. The cooking fire is lit. Tea is prepared. The familiar rhythm continues. But now, instead of carrying the heaviest loads himself, he watches his grown son lift the bamboo pole across his shoulders. The young man walks toward the well with steady steps. The older farmer smiles quietly. Not long ago he carried those same buckets. Time has a gentle way of passing responsibilities from one pair of hands to another. The grandchildren fill the house with laughter. They chase chickens through the yard. They ask endless questions about birds, trees, and insects. Sometimes they sit beside their grandfather while he repairs a basket or sharpens a hoe. He teaches them patiently, not through long speeches, simply by letting them watch. Slowly, he says, let the tool do the work. The children try their best. Sometimes they succeed. Sometimes they make mistakes. He never seems disappointed.
He remembers making the very same mistakes many years ago. The grandmother no longer spends entire days weaving cloth. Her fingers move a little more slowly now. Instead, she teaches her granddaughters how to spin thread. She corrects their hands gently. She smiles whenever the thread remains smooth and even. The knowledge she carries cannot be written inside a book. It lives inside practiced hands. It passes quietly from one generation to the next. The old ox has also grown grey around its face. It no longer ploughs the largest fields. The younger ox now performs most of the heavy work. Still, every morning, the grandfather visits the old animal. He brushes its coat. He offers fresh hay. Old companions deserve kindness. They have earned their rest.
Afternoons become quieter. The older villagers often gather beneath the shade of a large tree near the village square. They sip warm tea from simple clay cups. They talk about weather, harvests, and grandchildren. Sometimes long periods pass without anyone speaking. Silence among old friends is never uncomfortable. They have shared enough seasons to understand one another without many words. The younger villagers often seek their advice. When should we plant this year? How do we repair the old irrigation ditch? What should we do if the rains come late? The answers usually begin the same way. I remember a year. Then comes a story. Not because old people enjoy repeating themselves, but because experience is their greatest gift. Every flood survived. Every drought endured. Every difficult winter remembered. The stories become quiet lessons. As evening approaches, the grandfather sits outside his home. The sun slowly disappears behind the distant hills. Smoke rises from cooking fires across the village. Children laugh somewhere nearby.
The familiar sounds feel comforting. He watches his family preparing dinner. His son carries firewood. His daughter-in-law washes vegetables. The grandchildren set balls upon the table. The work continues, just as it always has. He realizes something simple. The village does not belong to one person. It never has. Each generation cares for it only for a little while. Then another generation quietly takes its place. History remembers powerful emperors, famous generals, and celebrated scholars. Yet most people in ancient China grew old exactly like this, surrounded by family, watching children become parents, watching parents become grandparents, living ordinary lives that left few written records. But those quiet lives built villages, raised families, grew harvests, and carried traditions forward century after century. As darkness gently settles over the rooftops, the old farmer stands slowly and stretches his tired back. Tomorrow, he may no longer plow the largest field. He may not carry the heaviest basket. But there will still be work he can do. A story to tell. A tool to repair. A grandchild to teach. And in that quiet way, another peaceful day in ancient China comes gently to an end.
Our quiet journey through ancient China is almost over. For many hours we have wandered together through muddy rice fields, peaceful villages, narrow dirt roads, and simple family homes. We have watched ordinary people wake before sunrise. We have carried water from the village well. We have gathered firewood beneath tall trees. We have planted rice one careful seedling at a time. We have cooked simple meals over glowing embers and rested on woven sleeping mats beneath endless stars. None of these moments were famous. No emperor recorded them. No great monument was built to celebrate them. Yet they were the moments that truly filled everyday life. History often shines its brightest light on extraordinary people, powerful rulers, victorious generals, brilliant inventors. Their names survive for centuries, their achievements are remembered. But behind every emperor stood millions of ordinary families. Families whose names have been forgotten, whose voices were never written into official records, whose stories quietly disappeared with time. A farmer bending over a flooded rice field, a grandmother patiently weaving cloth beside an open doorway, a child laughing while chasing chickens through the yard, a father repairing a broken hoe beneath the shade of an old tree. These were not dramatic moments, yet together they formed the rhythm of an entire civilization. Morning after morning, season after season, generation after generation. The village itself changed very slowly. Children grew into adults, adults became grandparents, old houses were repaired, new houses were built. Trees planted by one generation shaded another many decades later. The river continued flowing. The mountains remained where they had always been. The stars crossed the night sky just as they had for thousands of years. Life moved quietly forward. The people of ancient China could not imagine trains, airplanes, electric lights, or the internet. They measured time differently, by the flowering of plum trees, by the arrival of the summer rains, by the color of ripening rice, by the first frost of winter. Nature was their calendar. The land was their teacher. Patience was their greatest skill. Not every year brought a good harvest. Not every season was kind. Floods came. Droughts returned. Illness visited homes without warning. Loved ones grew old. Some journeys ended sooner than expected. Still, each morning, the cooking fire was lit again. The fields were visited again. The animals were fed again. Hope often looked very ordinary. It looked like planting seeds despite last year's disappointment. It looked like repairing a worn basket instead of throwing it away. It looked like sharing a bowl of rice with a neighbor whose harvest had failed. These small acts rarely appeared in history books, but they kept villages alive. If you could quietly step into one of these villages for a single evening, you might notice how familiar it feels. The laughter of children, the comforting smell of dinner cooking over an open fire, the gentle conversations between neighbors as the sun slips below the hills, the peaceful silence that follows a long day of honest work. The world would look different. The clothing would be unfamiliar. The tools would seem simple. Yet the hopes of the people would feel surprisingly close to our own. They wished for healthy children. They hoped for enough food to fill the storage jars. They wanted their parents to live long lives. They dreamed that tomorrow's weather would be kind. Across thousands of years, those quiet wishes have changed very little. Perhaps that is one of history's gentlest lessons. Although kingdoms rise and fall, although cities grow and disappear, although inventions transform the world, the simple rhythms of family, work, kindness, and hope remain remarkably constant. Tonight, the village grows quiet once more. The last cooking fire fades into glowing embers. The chickens settle onto their wooden roosts. The old ox lies peacefully beneath its shelter. A cool breeze drifts across the rice fields. The moon rises slowly above the distant hills, covering the rooftops with soft silver light. Inside the little house, the family rolls out their woven sleeping mats one final time. The grandparents whisper a familiar bedtime story.
The children listen with sleepy eyes. Before long, gentle breathing fills the room. Outside, crickets continue their endless evening song. The stars shine brightly above the silent countryside. Another ordinary day has come to an end. And tomorrow, just like yesterday, the sun will rise again over the fields of ancient China. Someone will light the cooking fire. Someone will carry water from the well. Someone will plant seeds with hope for the future. Life will quietly continue, one simple day at a time. And now, as our own journey gently comes to its close, you can let your thoughts drift as peacefully as those ancient fields beneath the moonlight.
Thank you for spending these quiet hours exploring the everyday struggles and the quiet beauty of ordinary life in ancient China. Sleep well.